Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to some Full Metal Demon Muramasa. Ichijo recently just got her own tsurugi, courtesy of the creepy Yakuza guy who just gave her one for free. I know, right? You'd think it comes with a catch, but this guy actually just gives them away to make people mess up the balance of society, so it's actually, like, kind of a freebie. It kind of works, as long as, like, you can do something and you're convicted, or convicted enough to, like, follow through, and he'll probably give you something. Crazy bastard. Anyway. Yeah, so Ichijo's got some power now, and she's always been a somewhat directed person, lacking only the power to see her dreams made manifest, so it's gonna be interesting to see where she goes with this now that she can actually fight. Let's get into it. I think this will probably be Ichijo and Muramasa sparring? That's what it sounds like. So when two trained Musha engage in single combat, the exhaust from their engines paints a figure 8, a futawa, in the sky, hence why Musha combat's known as futawa gakari. Alright. The more evenly matched they are in tsurugi and skill, the closer the futawa will be to perfection. Yet no matter how beautiful it might be, this work of art is fleeting, momentary, and even they who create it cannot witness its splendor in full. Mito, he's going to hit us with that awful laugh again. Oh, we're not. His persistence grows trying, though now we know why they call him Grinning AoE. Aoi? Is it Aoi? Instead? Oh no, he's laughing. Please send help. Can we go back to the maniacal laughter and not the weird laughter? Well, I guess that's why they call him Grinning Aoi. Aoi? A viscous cackling fills the sky. I know now that this is not an expression of amusement, but by enemy's Shinogi command. He activates his superpower by laughing maniacally. Alright then. The syllables grasp the air before my eyes and twist it into the desired illusion. Alright, guess we're not sparring, we're fighting some unknown person. Don't know who it is really, but I guess we're joining in medias res. Let's have some fun. I've had enough of your games. A magician with only one trick has no place on the stage. It's time to return you to the hell that spawned you. If you have a quarrel with me, then be patient. I'll be joining you there soon enough. And thank you for the drink, my friend. There are no sound alerts at present, as the website that hosts them is currently being very slow. So slow that it's giving me timeout errors. But there will be no sound redeems for the moment. Perhaps next time. Or perhaps later. So don't worry, we'll see him in hell soon. You? Kill me! I won't be defeated. Not by you. Muramasa, the title of demon belongs to me! You aren't even a monkey demon. What kind of demon are you supposed to be? We all have our dreams, I suppose, but this is the first time anyone's envied me for that. Well, if you want it, take it, is what I'd like to say. But not if it means losing to the likes of you. Gotta say, I do like the yellow horns he's got on his helmet, as well as like the golden sash or whatever he's got. going on as well, and his like jetpack thing looks kind of cool. Like it's a gold trimmed missile, and the wings look pretty solid. There's some things I like about this guy's design. The weird short unicorn horn in the center doesn't do it for me though. Neither does the weird ass face on his right shoulder.
私は生前からお前のことをよく知ってる。私たちは同じ時代にいたのだものね。
I knew you before my forging, Aoi. You and I lived the same age.
葵一門の面汚しい。幾人もの死手を惑わしそそのかし、女子供ばかりを狙って殺戮させた希代の打作。
I know how you brought shame to your clan.
仏像にでもなってしまえ。
You're a tsurugi that deceives its masters, twists their hearts, and drives them to slaughter women and children. You'd be better off melted down for a statue. I actually thought the slaughter was the end of the sentence. My bad. You've done it now, Muramasa. How dare you insult a fellow tsurugi? I'm pretty sure she doesn't even like the person who's behind the tsurugi. I'll make you pay. How do you like that? No, die! I said I've had enough. My words travel the airwaves to my destabilized foe, but I have no way of knowing whether Aoi, the bloodthirsty tsurugi, or the serial killer piloting it hear them. Not that there's any way of telling the two apart when their minds are completely fused by now. As I'm told has been the case with all of Aoi's pilots. Its exceptionally resilient armor has protected him from critical damage thus far, but I can't imagine he has much strength left. One more good hit and the 6th infected will die. It was another close call, but it looks like we'll be able to stop another egg from hatching. Why is it working? Why is it working? I show you hell and your worst nightmares. How can you stand it? Hell, you say? My worst nightmares? Well, I don't need you to show me what those are. The I've lived them. They're with me every minute of every day. The phantasms you summon are no more disturbing than your average modern art piece. Study Picasso's Guernica if you want to improve your imagery. Study some Picasso to improve your ability to manufacture images. Alright. Roasting him in every way imaginable. I turn to face my enemy. While still quite wobbly, he appears to have mostly regained control. Why didn't he run, I wonder? Pride? Anger? Or did he reason he couldn't shake me? No matter, my task is the same either way.
Muramasa,
we'll finish this on the next pass. We can't risk letting the egg hatch now. Right with you. Let's send this piece of garbage to the scrap heap. Goodbye, random enemy we've never met before. I start my dive and the enemy rises to meet me. I must admit his courage is impressive, but I have the advantage in altitude, speed, and condition. He has no hope of victory now. If nightmares won't work, how about this? Instead of a nightmare, a fantasy of what life could be? I'm kind of surprised he's even able to present illusions, since generally if you're in a tsurugi, you're immune to all the mental and physical effects of your opponent's shinogi unless it destroys your armor. Another gale of laughter and another illusion. We've been through this any number of times now. He just doesn't learn. He's determined to see his shinogi succeed or die trying. The illusion takes no shape. I feel no fear. No matter what he shows me now, I won't elicit I'm going to listen more than a board. Why are you here, mother?
何が見えた？何が見えた？
Did you see? What did you see? Oh, he's having some fun.
それは貴様の安らぎだ。地獄の冷たさには耐えられようと、その温かさには抗えまい。
You saw happiness, didn't you? The comfort you've longed for? You might bear the cold of hell, but none can resist the warmth of love? Didn't he kill his own mother? That isn't gonna end well for the jester. Hey, what's up, my dude? Ready for a good weekend?
沈め！安らぎの夢に沈んでしまえ！
Ah, my pal diviner. Now fall into your dream of peace forever. Mito. White. Chapter 5, The Fated. Okay. So we got a cold start there. And I awaken as ever in a dark, dark cage. A prison. Yes, this is a prison. A prison without chains or walls, but a prison nonetheless. A prison just for me. I've always been here alone in the dark, dreaming the same dream. It begins. It's a memory seared into the deepest synapses of my brain. I've relived it 100,000 times. And now, once more, a woman is holding me. My mother. Yes, the sound redeems are all disabled, as the website that's hosting them and the interface that lets me use them is not working. A man is standing before her. My father. My mother speaks, each word cold and sharp as a blade. Thank you for the drink, my friend. You're not her father. She is not your daughter. My father listens in stony silence. From his expression, it's clear he's had no choice in the matter. This sentence was passed by powers beyond him, and now he has only to hear and obey. My mother continues. She has no father. I have no father. You're not her father. He's not my father. You must never love her. He will never love me. The dream ends and I'm back in darkness. It will begin again soon, I know. The dream is my only companion in this place. My mother driving my father away. My father torn from his only daughter. The images come from the moment of my birth, recorded by my virgin skin to form the foundation of my soul. How do you even remember something that happened when you were that young? The moment my father was stolen from me. This is the origin of Minato Hikaru. Oh, so it's Kinsego's beginning? Okay.
じゃあ部長、この書類はもう回しちゃって構いませんね。
It's the flashback episode. Boss, are these files ready to pass out?
いいよ、よろしく。おい、
Sure, have at it.
港くん。
Hey, Kageaki.
はい。
Sir,
納品リストはできた？
is the delivery list done?
それならたった今。これです。
I just
確認お願い
finished.
します。
Here it is. Please check my
は
numbers.
いよ、どれ
Thanks,
ど
let's
れ
see.。
うん、問題なし。今日はもう上がっていいよ。定時過ぎてるだろ。
It looks fine. Feel free to pack it in. You're over your shift already.
お心遣い痛み入ります。
Thanks, sir. I'll do just that.
これで失礼いたします。
The series is now an office drama.
はい、お疲れ。
Who's the best friend? How annoying is the secretary? How annoying and sarcastic is the secretary?
お疲れ様。
More?
ああ、港先輩。 倉庫に取引先からもらった果物の箱があるから少し持って行ってください。
One of our
ス
clients
バル様
sent
とヒカルちゃんに。
a box of fruit from their orchard. Why don't you take a few for the family?
ありがとう。二人とも喜ぶ。
Thanks, I'm sure they'll be delighted. He's your average family man. Got a wife and kids. Loving parents, everything.
田中、湊くん、俺の分はないのかって顔で言ってるぞ。
Look at what you've done, Tanaka. His face is asking, what about me?
言ってません。先輩はそんな意地汚くないです。
It
部
is
長とは
not,
違いますもん。
he's not selfish like you, boss.
うわ、ひでえ。
Oh, that hurts. Really?
ああ、でもご自分の分もちゃんと持ってってくださいね、先輩。
Of
いっ
course
ぱい
you
あ
can
り
take
ま
some
す
for
し、
yourself.
余らせて腐っちゃったらもったいないですから。
There's plenty, and they'll just spoil otherwise. Thanks.
ありがと
I'll get
う。
it.
いただいていく。
Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. An office life drama. While it wasn't my intention to be greedy, the bag ends up heavy enough that I have to switch hands every so often as I walk. That's always annoying. That and always worrying if you're like straining the like plastic too much. And it's gonna like tear. I've had that happen to me before. That's why I don't walk to the grocery store anymore or take the bus. Cause like if you have the bag handles tear once, you're like, nah, I'm not doing this again. It's early evening and the streets are full. Children scurry home from school while wives and daughters shop for dinner. This is the only time of day that one might call busy in the small northern Kanto town. Kanto town? It seems like every other person I see is an acquaintance or friend. I exchange greetings with them as I pass or stop for some brief conversation. I mean, it's a small town, everyone knows everyone, alright? In the latter case, my partner is usually a housewife less interested in the content of our conversation than the act of talking itself. I listen politely, offering responses and interjections where appropriate, until it becomes time to move on. This process is hardly unpleasant, though the same can rarely be said of the topic. The 39th year of Koryu. I have no way of knowing how the history books will describe this age, but I know that to the people now living it, it can't end soon enough. Only 4 years have passed since the war came to a tragic close, and the Rokuhara shogunate, the power behind said tragedy, is still hard at work cementing its rule of Yamato through fear. So, 2 years ago. Okay. It's not as far back as you thought it would be. So, life in Yamato. Not so great. Though never mentioned in public forums, one incident is at the front of everyone's mind. The Osaka massacre, which took place just 1 year ago. Alright, last year everyone in Osaka died. If we don't go along, we'll end up like that, Mr. Yabe mutters as she makes the sign to ward off evil. The horns? She then says farewell and we go our separate ways. Her fears, I'm sure, are shared by every person in Yamato, but to the people of this town they have a certain immediacy. Not surprising when you consider our present circumstances. As I look around, I think about how much the town has changed. Civilians aren't allowed to change address without cause. Nevertheless, the harsh realities of life here have driven many to flee in search of greener pastures. For example, the house down the street was once home to a family of dogs that would bark up a storm whenever I passed by it, but it's silent now. The owner vanished after his faithful companions were slaughtered for making noise. And then there's that park over there which used to have a playground for small children to enjoy. But the swings and slides and jungle gyms are gone now. Salvaged as we were told, to build a barricade. Barking dogs and frolicking children, just two things missing, and this street seems to belong to a different town. No.
もう一つ。
One more. There's one more thing missing, the most important of all. She is not here.
もしこれが
If this were just 1
去
year
年の
ago,
光景だったら。
then right about now,
Kageaki!
another a flashback within a flashback? Come on, game. Kageaki.
光る。わざわざ迎えに来なくてもいいと言っているだろう。
Hikaru, I told you you don't need to meet me after
う
work.
ん、聞いた。しかし承服した覚えはないな。
Yes, I heard you. I don't recall agreeing.
妹が兄を迎えて何がいけない？
Shouldn't a sister walk their brother home?
女子はみだりに外出しないものだ。お前ももう子供ではないだろう。
Ladies don't wander around outdoors. You're not a child anymore. Well, yeah, it's probably not safe for anyone to be wandering outdoors, if we're being honest. Not in Rokuhara and Yamato. Not safe for anybody.
それはそれとして。ただいま。
That said, it's good to see ya.
その考えは古いぞ、影明。婦人団体から総攻撃者だ。
These aren't the Middle Ages, Kageaki. You'll make enemies of women everywhere talking like that.
それはともかく。おかえり。
That said, it's good to see you. He is a professional working a job. Why does she look like she's still a schoolgirl?
一概に決めつけて言っているのではない。だが、
I thought they were supposed
古
to
来
be
から続いた
siblings.
習慣には理由があるものだ。
Here
それ
they're
を吟味もせず、ただ差
declaring
別の一言で否定する態度は俺には認めかねる。
here they're declaring themselves each other's siblings, but she looks like she's like 10 years his junior. I keep thinking Kageaki's like 20 or 30. Like he's clearly not like 16. And she looks like she's supposed to be like in her low teens again. I don't mean to generalize, I'm just saying there's reasons for certain customs, and we would do well to consider them before labeling those customs prejudice.
なるほど、それはもっともだ。しかしその理由とは、男は外で戦い、女は家を守るという、遥か古代の役割分担に尽きる。
I see, quite right. In this case, however, the custom in question is based on an outdated system of gender roles where women care for the household while men went off to war.
現代ではもう意味があるまい。戦わぬ男もいるし、家庭を持たぬ女もいる。
Things, however, are no longer so cut and dried. Now there are plenty of men who don't fight, and just as many women who don't become wives or mothers.
確かにそうなった。しかしそれが正しいことだとは誰にも言い切れないだろう。特に後者だが。
True, things have changed, but no one, least of all I, can say whether those things are for the better, especially with respect to the latter.
佐伯さん、こんばんは。
Ah, Miss Saiki, good
こ
evening.
んばんは。
Good evening.
あら、港さんちのご兄弟、こんばんは。
Oh, if it isn't the Minato siblings, and a good evening to you too.
相変わらず仲がいいのね。
I see you're getting along as swimmingly as ever.
その割にはあまり言うことを聞いてくれず困っていますが。
Though I do wish you would listen to me once in a while.
うむ、仲は良い。だからそこで足を止めずに、気を利かせて早く立ち去ってくれまいか、佐伯さん。
A keen observation, Miss Saiki. Now, won't you please continue on your way and leave us to bond in peace?
こら、光る
Hikaru! Is she being too blunt? Minato Kageaki's pretty blunt most of the time, too.
若いっていいわ
Oh,
ね。
it's good to be young.
恥をかかせるんじゃない。
Are you trying to shame me?
ほんの軽口だ。佐伯さんには通じ
They're
ている
both
さ。
visible on the same page right now. Like, you can see the height difference. He's like head and shoulders taller than her. She looks like she's in her young teens, and he's like generic businessman 1, 2, 3, 4, probably mid-20s, because he doesn't have gray hair, and people aren't calling him boss. Oh well. Harmless banter. Miss Saiki understands.
まったく。やはりお前には淑女になるための修行がいるな。
I'm starting to think we should find a tutor to teach you better manners, such as those befitting a lady.
いらぬいらぬそんなもの。光には必要ない。
Nay, nay, perish the thought. Hikaru has no need of such things.
さっきのお前の言を借りれば、光は家を守る太刀ではない。外に出て戦う方だ。武者修行の方がよほど性に合う。
Now, to return to our earlier topic, I'm a woman who belongs not at home but on the battlefield. Musha training suits me far better.
またそんなことを言う。
This again?
お前は自分を知らんのだ。
You just don't know yourself.
知っているとも。
But I do.
たった一つを除いてはな。光る。 お前は自分に花嫁衣装がどれほど似合うかを知るまい。
In all respects but one. What you don't know, Hikaru, is how beautiful you'd look in wedding robes. Is both not an option here? Thinking. Don't tell me she's in love with her brother. The classic.
俺は鮮明に脳裏へ思い描けるがな。それを見られると思うと
It's always incest.
やはり残念で仕方がない。
I can see it vividly in my mind's eye, and to think that it may never come to pass causes me no end of anguish.
ま
Well,
あ
when you put it
そう
that
だな。
like that,
鍵明が俺を家に押し込めてくれるというなら考えないでもない。
if you're willing to take responsibility for keeping me in the home, I suppose I might consider it.
それはお前を実力でしのいで男の代わりに戦う必要をなくしてみせろということか。
In other words, I have to prove
なかなかに
myself
問題だな。
stronger. You don't feel the need to fight in my place. I'm afraid it's not going to be easy.
どうしたヒカル？
What's wrong?
まるで声にならない絶叫を発してい
You
るよう
look
な
like
顔
you're
だ
having a
な。
brain aneurysm. And he is playing the clueless male brother. I see. We've seen this a few times. She's a brocon. It's so obvious. And it took us, what, like 10 seconds? Poor Kageaki. The both of them. One can't recognize her feelings. And the other is expressing them but suffering under it as the other one is blind.
うるさい。もういい。
Enough. No more
て
shouting.
りゃ
Take the.
こら、首にぶら下がるな。
Hey, stop hanging from my
断
neck.
る。
Never.
歩けないだろうが。
I can't walk.
歩いてみせろ。そんなことでヒカルに勝てるか。
Find a way. How else will you ever defeat me?
この格好でか。
Walk like this? Like this? A
そう
challenge.
だ。買い物にも行くぞ。晩飯の材料が足りないのだ。
Indeed. Now, to the marketplace. We require groceries for dinner.
降りろ。
Get off.
嫌だ。さあ行くぞ鍵焼き。まずは豆腐屋だ。
Praising.
続いて
Praising.
八百屋、酒屋、魚屋と回る。
I refuse. Now, off we go, Kageaki. First stop, the tofu seller, then the greengrocer, liquor store, and finally the fish merchant.
町内一周ではないか。明日には俺は町中の笑い者だ。
That's the whole town. I'll be made a laughing stock.
はあ、それは大変だ。そうなっては嫁のなり手もおるまい。
Why, too bad. No one will marry you after this.
よし、絶対にこのまま行くぞ。
Now, I'm even more keen on the idea. Onwards.
勘弁しろというのに。
Go! Seeing Kageaki is suffering even before his sister turns evil. I shiver once, feeling a sudden chill. It's time to go home. It's getting dark. I leave the busy downtown area and walk past several farms, eventually coming to a grand manor situated in the woods overlooking the town. It's my home, or to be less presumptuous, the Minato home of which I happen to be a resident. The manor owes its size not only to the abundance of available land in this backwater, but also to the Minato family's status as one branch of the clan that has ruled these parts. In fact, if not always in title, for several hundred years. But for all the honor afforded to the Minato family, it's hard to justify such a home now with only 3 people living under its many roofs. Not only is it an excess that we can ill afford in these times, it's also rather inconvenient. An apartment would be far more appropriate for our needs, but of course the great Minato family could never be seen living with the common folk.
これは
Oh, what's this? I freeze, narrowly avoiding a collision with the man who emerges from the gate.
影明か。
Kageaki. The elderly gentleman fixes me with a dour glare. I can't stand here like a fool forever, especially not in front of this man. I quickly move to the side to clear the path, then bow deeply in greeting.
ご本家。おいでとは存じませず、無礼をいたしました。
Sir, please pardon my rudeness. I was not aware you were visiting.
よい。仕事帰りか。
No matter. Are you just getting back from work?
は、
Yes.
少しスバルと話をしてきた。後であいつから聞いておけ。
I had business to discuss with Subaru. Get the details from her.
は、
Sir, I guess her first name is Subaru.
ではな、スバル。夜の会合までにわしの言ったことをよく考えておくのだぞ。
I'm off, Subaru. Make sure you think on what I've said before the assembly tonight.
ああ、うん、はい。ご足労いただいてどうもでした、本家。
Sure thing, Gramps, comes a listless voice from inside the gate. Be careful walking back. This guy looks like he's like generic evil councilman. Okay, you get that feeling? It's like he's bald, unpleasant, and looks kind of evil. And since presumably he's talking about a council, I just assume that he's like some random city councilman that's like, how dare you people live here? You have this wealthy house, and you didn't give it to everyone. I want to tax your wages 600%. Or something lame like that. Who knows? Oh, he even does the evil snort. Alright. He even does that line. Classic. The old man snorts, then walks off down the road, his gait unsteady. No surprise given his advanced age. But I know better than to offer an escort. He wouldn't appreciate the gesture. No, he intends to play the mighty king until the day age finally takes him. Why else would he refuse to use a car, even on these mountain roads? I watch him go for a while longer and turn to the woman who is doing the same.
ただいま帰りました、スバル様。
Good evening, mother.
はい、おかえり。今日もご苦労さん。
Welcome home, son. You're late. Hoping you're not working too hard. The woman, Subaru, my adoptive mother, and the current head of the Minato family, graces me with a sleepy smile. It's been my good fortune to see this smile many times these past 20 years. Nothing about it changes, saves for the nuance. Today it seems a little more tired than usual. While her concern for my well-being is appreciated, I do wish she would spend a little more time thinking of her own.
あまり面白くないお話でしたか？
Did your talk not go
う
well?
ーん、そう見えるか。息子の目はごまかせんね。
You can tell? She scratches the back of her head bashfully. Guess I can't fool my own son. He reaches into the folds of her robe and produces a small rectangular box. Without thinking, I reach into my own pocket and take out a pack of matches, striking one and offering it to her. These motions became instinct years ago.
ありがとう。
I guess she just carries cigarettes in the folds of the kimono and not doesn't have pockets. Alright, thanks. She accepts my light, then takes a deep drag on her cigarette and blows it out with a contented sigh.
はあ、生き返る。本家の前じゃ吸えないからね。
That's better. Can't smoke in front of the old man.
短い禁煙、お疲れ様です。
Congratulations on making it through the meeting.
もう、可愛くないことを言ったな。影焼も付き合いなさい。一本でいいから。
That's not healthy. Encouraging unhealthy habits for your children? You might look good, but you're a terrible mother. Sarcasm doesn't become you, my boy. Here, smoke one with me.
はい。では一本だけ。
Alright, just one.
よしよし、いい子だ。あいつは私がこう言ってもガンとして受け付けなかったからな。
Oh, you're such a good son. He'd never smoke with me no matter how much I beg.
吸ったら病みつきになるのが分かっているから吸わない。とのことでしたね。あ
He
の人
always
らし
said
い
he
よ
knew
うです
just。one would get him addicted. Very like him to avoid the temptation. I take a cigarette and place it between my lips, but just as I'm about to light my second match, I find my mother's face suddenly inches away. Eyes laughing, she touches the tips of our cigarettes together. She always enjoyed seeing me flustered. What am I to do? I wait for her to pull away before filling my lungs with the fragrant smoke. In all honesty, I don't understand the appeal. Still, it's not a bother, and she'll sulk if I refuse. So I made a policy of joining her when asked. It does have a certain stress-relieving quality, which I partake of now in full. The casual smoker, casually destroying their own lungs.
例の連中の件だったんだけどね。
It was about our uninvited guests.
はい。
本家はとにかくおせおせの一点張り。あんな奴らをのさばらせておいてはこの町の保険に関わる。とまあこうだ。
The old man keeps talking about driving them off. Says the longer we let them have their way, the worse it'll be for the town's reputation.
町に保険なんてあんのかね。
Like this town has a reputation to worry about.
まさか
あ
Oh?
それをご本家の前で。
You didn't say that to his face, did you?
言っちゃった。い
kinda
やつ
just came
い。
その場にいなくてよかったと思います。
I'm glad I arrived as late as I did. Wouldn't want to have to witness that. No wonder that guy was in such a grumpy mood.
まあ向こうももう慣れてるから別に血管切れるほど怒りはしなかったよ。
He's used to it by now. It's not like he'd burst a blood vessel or anything.
雷は落ちたけどね。耳塞いで寝てたらそれもすぐ収まったし。
Sure, sure. There's a bit of thunder and fury, but that goes away if you stick your head under a pillow. You know, no big deal. No wonder he seemed more stern than usual.
そ
Still,
れにしても
still what? Still, I'm wondering if this entire chapter is going to be a flashback. I guess we'll find out, right?
ご本家は本気なのでしょうか。奴らを実力で排撃するなど。
Is the old master really serious about attacking them?
さてね、半々じゃない？
Half serious,
町の
probably.
人間に弱気な姿勢は見せられないってのも
The
半
other
分はあ
half
る
is
だろ
just
うさ。
posturing for the town.
では実際に踏み切ることはありませんか。
You don't think he'll actually go through with it?
と思うんだけどね。やるやるって言い張ってるうちに引っ込みがつかなくなるって可能性もある
I
な。
hope not. Though it's possible if he keeps up with his blustering, sooner or later he won't be able to back down.
町のみんなは本家の葛藤までわからないからね。本家の言葉はそのまんま受け止める習慣が身についちまってる。
Not like people can read his mind. The whole
今は
town
みん
is
な中立か消極的反対だけど、
the whole town's used to taking whatever he says at face value, and right now they're either on the fence or in quiet opposition.
そのうちご本家のご勢に負ける格好で賛成を口にし始める可能性がなきにしもあら
But
ず。
you're saying there's a chance they'll start bending to his rhetoric, and the more of them agree.
そうそう。そうなったらバカバカしいね。本当は誰も望んでないのに無謀な戦を始めなきゃならなくなる。
Yeah, we're gonna look pretty stupid when we get ourselves killed in the fight no one wanted in the first place. Stupid, she repeats again. Then breathes a ring of smoke into the sky. The perfectly shaped donut hangs overhead for a few seconds before vanishing.
そんな事態は避けたいものです。
I hope it does not come to that.
うん。お母さん頑張るよ。まあ私が防波堤になってる間は町のみんなが転ぶこともないだろうさ。本家が怖いったって矢面に立たされなけりゃ知らんふりできるし。
Mom's doing her best. Don't worry. As long as I'm the one he spends most of his time yelling at, the rest of the town won't cave so easily. He's not as scary when you're not on the receiving end. I can only assume that there's some residual authority or relevance to their family as a once great ruler of the region. And that's why he's appealing to her instead of going just to town councilors or whatever, who knows. Like she has some pull or recognition in the town, and so her opinion matters more than other people's.
夜に会合があるとか。
You spoke of an assembly later tonight?
踏ん張りどころだね。雷が私以外のところへ飛び火しないようにうまくやんないと。
Yep, moment of truth. Gotta make sure his lightning bolts don't hit anyone but me.
自分に何かできることはないでしょうか。スバル様をお助けするために。
If there's anything I can do to relieve you of some of your burdens.
そのセリフだけで母さん燃えるから大丈夫。まあとりあえずは力つけとこうか。
Huh, words are all I need to get the juices flowing, my son. Though some nourishment couldn't hurt either.
飯にしようよ。風呂が沸いてるから汗を流しておいで。
Let's eat. The bath's ready, so go wash up while I set the table.
はい。ヒカルの食事は
Alright. What about Hikaru's dinner?
眠ってるみたいだからね。起きるのを待とうか。
I think she's asleep now. Let's wait until she wakes up.
無理に起こすのも良くないだろうし。
She needs a rest.
はい、
Of course.
そうですね。
Holding off an elaborate Japanese dinner? That sounds like a real pain. I guess you could like maybe reheat it all.
我が子たちよ。君らなんで箸を持ったままピクリともせず見つめ合っとんのかね。
My beloved children, why have you been staring at each other with your chopsticks in the air for the last 5 minutes?
いえ、
Well,
別に何でもありません、母上。どうかお気になさらず。
it's nothing, mother. Pay us no mind.
すいません。すっごく気になります。気になって私までご飯食べられません。
Sorry, but it's really bothering me. I can't eat like this.
ご迷惑を。
I apologize for the inconvenience.
お前はどうしたの、影焼き。
What's wrong with you, Kageaki?
はあ、その
It's just
光の視線が
Hikaru's
先ほど
stare.
から。
一挙手一投足を逃さねえって目だな。血を分けた娘ながら野獣にしか見えん。
Oh, you're right. Them's the eyes of a predator tracking your every move, and I thought I gave birth to a human, not a hawk.
おーい、そこの花も恥じらうお年頃な少女。その暗黒陶器は一体何なんだよ。
Hey there, tender maiden. What's with the aura of darkness?
何でもないと言っているでしょう。構わずさっさと豚のように食らって牛のように寝てください。
I said it's none of your concern. Please return to your hog-like eating ritual and leave us in peace.
ますます食えないだろう。
Oh, I've really lost my appetite. An awkward family dinner.
ああ、もしかしてそういうことか。
I get it.
スバル様、
Pardon?
いやね、今日久しぶりにこの子が料理を手伝ってその
So the truth is, I had a little help cooking today's.
母上、食卓での口はおしゃべりではなく、食事のためにあるものです。
Mother, the dinner table is a place for eating, not talking.
無駄口は慎まれたがよろしい。
Please refrain from idle chatter. A very awkward family dinner.
影焼き、私の首ちょっとついてる。
Kageaki, is my head still attached?
はい、無事です。さすがはスバル様。今の一撃をよくぞかわされました。往年の鋼巫女は未だ健在のご様子。
That was the most impressive evasion. I see the famous Iron Shrine Maiden is still in top form.
そんな感心してなくていいから息子よ。もう少しこっちへ寄りなさい。そんでまたあの芝刈り機みたいな人が飛んできたら母を守るように。何度も避けられるかあんなの。
Stop being impressed and get over here. I need you close so you can protect me the next time she tries to mulch my head with her knife hand. I can't dodge her forever.
申し訳ありません。無理です。自分にはそもそも指先が見えませんでした。
Forgive me, I'm afraid I won't be of much use. I couldn't even see her move.
なんでこんな恐ろしい生物になっちゃったんだこの娘
How
は。
did she become such a terror?
母さん、家庭内暴力の恐怖に屈しそうです。 DV ってこういうのか。
We'll see what it's like to have an abusive husband. Every moment lived in fear.
影焼き、二人きりの食卓だからといって変に気を使う必要はない。早く食べるといい。
Kageaki. I know it's just the two of us, but that's no reason to be shy. Eat up.
二人？
Just the two of us?
あれ、私はぶられてる。
What happened to me?
二人だ。もし意もしない三人目がどうしても気になるのなら言え。質量保存の法則を無視してでもこの宇宙から完全に抹消してやろう。
Yes, just the two of us. Let me know if the non-existent third person at this table bothers you. I'll erase all trace of her from the universe if I have to ignore this if I have to ignore the conservation of mass to do it. My mind was expecting conversation, not conservation of mass.
すみません。もう黙って食べます。私いませんから。母さんここにいませんから。
Sorry, I'll be good. I'll eat quietly. I'm not here. Mommy's not here.
さあ、
Alright.
影焼き、迷い橋は行儀が悪いぞ。
Hovering is very poor manners.
俺もやりたくてやっているわけではないのだが。
I'm not doing it because I want to.
何か取ろうとするたびに視線の十文字槍が突き刺さるからああなってんだろ。
It's because you're hitting him with the optic equivalent of a spear thrust every time he reaches for something.
何やらうるさい虫けらがいるな。潰すか。
There seems to be a rather noisy insect in the room. Shall I squash it?
母親に対する言葉じゃない。
But I'm your mother.
影明、このままだと飯が冷めていく一方だからな。とりあえずその煮魚から食え。
Dinner will get cold if this keeps up. Why don't you just start with that boiled fish there?
煮魚
Fish?
それ
That one.
煮魚でしたか。
Oh, so that's
型
what
崩
that
れ
is.
して原型をとどめていないので何か全くわかり
It's
ませ
so
んでした。
misshapen I couldn't identify it.
今のは矛先違うんじゃないか娘よ。
Why are you going after me?
黙れ母上。
Silence, mother.
こんな殺伐とした親子関係は嫌だ。もう実家に帰る。
My daughter's not supposed to be this dangerous. I'm going back to my parents' place. Is it just me or does this seem like Otori? Like very inspired by Otori. Less authoritative, but very much Otori. As his mother.
ここです。
That would be here. Of course.
逃げ場ね
There's nowhere to run.
影明。
Kageaki.
うん。
Right. Oh,
では
I'll
い
give
た
it
だ
a
きま
try.
す。おや、
Well, it may not look like much.
見てくれはよくないが、このうまい。いつもの味付けとは少し違うが、これはこれでなかなか。
This fish is good. It tastes a little different than usual, but not bad at all.
そうか。
Really?
本当か影明。無理するなよ。ダメそうだったら戻してもいいぞ。こんなこともあろうかと思って、ほら母さ
Are
ん
you
ち
sure?
ゃんと OK をここに。
Don't force yourself, okay? I won't think any less of you if you have to barf it up. I even brought in a bucket for you just in...
スバル様はどこへ行かれた？
Where did Mother go?
手洗いではないか。気にしてやるな。
To the toilet, perhaps. I'm sure she's fine.
今のドボーンという音は、
That splash just now.
あたかも豪快に吹っ飛ばされた人間が裏の沢へ
I
落
think
ち
it
た
was
かの
the
よう
sound
な。
of someone falling into the pond out back.
カエルか何かだろう。さあ、気にせず食え。
Must have been a frog. Come, dig in. Very well. I assume that she made it herself, right? The young Miss Kageaki? They're all Kageakis.
やはり良い味だ。
うん
少し変わっているが、そこがまた面白い。
It really is good. A bit unorthodox, but that makes it unique.
そうか、そうか。
I see, I see.
ありがとう、ヒカル。
Thank you, Hikaru.
なんだ、唐突に。
Why are you thanking
お
me?
前が作ったのだろう。
You made this, didn't you?
わかるのか。
You can
あ
tell.
あ、スバル様の気配がなかったからな。この皿だけは。
Of course, this dish was the only one that didn't feel like Mother's.
味を見て違うと確信した。
And the taste made me certain.
だが、食べもせぬうちにそれが分かったのか。
But still, you knew before you even tried it?
ああ、スバル様の気配の有無はなんとなくだが
Of course.
わかる。
I can somehow tell what does and doesn't have her touch.
さて、早いところ食べ終えてしまお
Come,
う。
let's eat.
このままだと本当に冷める。
Otherwise, it really will get cold. You too.
あ
Right.
どうした？
What's wrong?
いや、なんでもない。
Nothing. Just eat.
この味か。
See.
この味が影明の好みなのだな。
So this is what you like. Hmm.
そうだな。うるさいことを言えば、
Well,
もう少し締まった味付けの方が好みだが。
if I was gonna be picky, I'd prefer a slightly more subdued flavor.
締まった味付け。難しいことを言う。詳しく教えてくれ。
Subdued. I'm not sure what that means. Can you explain?
うん。つまり、
Well, you see.
ふむふむ。
子供たちよ、その和やかで幸福な団らんは母の尊い犠牲の上に成り立ってることを忘れるんじゃないぞ。
Children, don't forget this happy little meal is founded on your mother's noble sacrifice. I think they've forgotten.
ん
Wrong.
どうかした影明
I'm sorry.
いえ、
Seems I lost myself in memory for a moment there. My mother and I alone at the dinner table. This is reality. The time when this table seated one more and was far lively for it is past. We return to our food and neither of us speaks. It was not always like this. When these lonely meals began 1 year ago, my mother and I both sought to fill the silence with something. Anything, no matter how banal. We soon gave up the effort. It didn't take us long to realize the futility. Ever since, this has been our nightly ritual. Our chopsticks move with mechanical precision while dutifully feeding us, while we fight to keep the silence from crushing our heads into the table. Yet, however much we loathe the silence, the fear of it ending is infinitely stronger. After all, there's only one way that can happen. At the sound, the damnably familiar sound of a shoji screen crashing to the floor, I leap to my feet and race down the hall.
光る。
Hikaru! So, how long ago was this? A year, okay. So this is a year ago? Okay. I find her flopping wildly atop her futon. Her screams like the wail of a broken clarinet. Without a moment's hesitation, I leap atop her and hold her down.
光る。ダメだ。暴れるな。
Hikaru, don't fight me. Her thin, bony limbs struggle beneath me, but I know I mustn't restrain her by force. If I don't allow her some freedom of movement, the energy of her spasming muscles will turn inward, a stress that her body can no longer endure. Her body will shatter like pieces of fine china.
ダメだ。頼む。落ち着いてくれ。
I beg you, calm down.
光る。
Please, Hikaru. Her only reply is more meaningless howls, but I expected nothing else. Her heart is closed to me. And yet I can't help but call to her, hoping, praying that I'll be heard.
光る。おとなしくするんだ。
Calm down, Hikaru, please. My mother enters and takes her place beside me, never speaking a word. She's holding a washcloth and a tub of water which she sets upon the floor. She wets the cloth, wrings it out, and touches it to Hikaru's forehead. Hikaru doesn't take this well, shaking her head violently as if to escape her mother's touch. Fearing she'll do herself injury, I gently steady her head between my hands. My mother takes this opportunity to wipe Hikaru's face. She dabs, and little by little, Hikaru's screams and convulsions subside. Throughout this process, my mother and I do not speak. We no longer need to. It's second nature to us now, drilled into our bodies by endless repetition. Day in and day out, we tend to Hikaru, ever since that fateful day 1 year ago. There's a river, Kanagawa, that flows past the town. The mountains at its head are a prime source of minerals and home to several mines and a smelting plant. The plant is the source of all our misery, though the mining company continues to deny it even now. Everyone in the town knows who's responsible. One day, an elderly fisherman went mad and threw himself into the traffic. His neighbors wondered what might have caused the horrible episode, but none thought to pursue the matter further. 3 days later, an entire family met the same fate. The father bashed his skull on the floor, the mother drowned herself in the well, and their 5-year-old son, though taken into custody, soon bit off his tongue and choked on his own blood. Within a month, the casualties had reached the double digits, and then at last the town realized the truth, that nearly everyone who ate fish from the river went mad. Heavy metal poisoning, we learned it was called. Waste products from the smelting process flowed downstream and were absorbed into fish. Whoever ate the fish inherited the taint from which consumed them from within. Unfortunately, research on this terrible disease had not progressed in Yamato, though perhaps it was fortunate there had never been a need. Regardless, its curse had now fallen on our town. The region went into a frenzy. Towns and villages burned catches by the hundred, then formed angry posses and marched on the factory, which closed its gates and refused to communicate except through press briefs riddled with excuses. But for me, the chaos was distant. I had a more immediate concern. My sister, who'd fallen victim to the disease only days before the truth came to light. It would also be in your water supply, too. This has been my life ever since. Every night, or close enough, my bedridden sister goes into seizures. After fighting to calm them, I put her to sleep and thank the gods she survived just one more day, only to breathe a heavy sigh the next morning when I wake to find her a little more pale and a little more shrunken than before. We've had doctors examine her, dozens of them, but all they can tell us that the poison is eating at her bones and that her fits are caused by the hideous pain. Finally, after offering a diagnosis we've heard countless times before, they all say the same thing. It's beyond the power of Yamatoan medicine. She must be treated by a Western doctor, one from Britain or Habsburg, where such diseases are more common. A Western doctor? If only, I think, as I gaze upon her sunken features, if only I could. Excuses, answers a harsher voice from within. However difficult, it's not impossible to bring a Western doctor to Yamato. All you need is money and influence enough to circumvent the shogunate's restrictions. I know who has the resources necessary. Time and again I've asked for his help, and all I have to show for it is my sister's unending torment.
スバル様、寄り合いの時間なのでは。
Isn't it time for the assembly?
ああ、うん。またにしてもらうか。
Right, I'll ask them to postpone it.
今日でなくちゃいけないわけでもなかろうしね。
It's not like it has to be today.
いえ、この状態になれば、あとは自分一人で手が足ります。
Please don't. She's calmed down enough, I can handle it myself.
会合へ。
You should speak at the assembly.
うん。
あちらとて急ぎの問題のはずです。
They need a voice of reason.
ああ、そうか。
I guess you're right.
やれやれだ。すまないね、影焼き。じゃあ頼むよ。
Alright, kid, keep an eye on her for me.
はい。
Yes. She hands me the washcloth and leaves the room, her fading footsteps carrying a hint of melancholy.
Subaru 様も少し痩せられた。
Mother's losing weight, I realize, and curse myself for having no solution. I know her health will not recover as long as we spend our days in constant fear of Hikaru's attacks. Only when they're behind us will she start to regain her old vitality. Hikaru's convulsions have subsided to the point where her arms and legs are only flopping limply against the floor. I know from experience she'll soon be calm enough to be put to bed, but I must remain vigilant. Even these weak movements can potentially damage her bones, so I keep her in my gentle embrace, diffusing the energy of her spasms as they come. That I'm able to do this is thanks to the Yawara techniques I learned in my youth. I think this is where my martial training would show its worth. I wish I'd never needed to use it, but I also know without it, my sister would not have survived as long as she has. Sedatives are of little use against this illness. To have a palliative effect, you must increase the dosage to dangerous levels, therefore while viable for emergency treatment. In the long term, the side effects far outweigh the benefits, at least as long as you still hope for the patient's recovery. If Hikaru's survival were all that mattered, I would consider it an option, but I want her to live again, to stand on her own feet. Well, this is a depressing tale. But hey, Hikaru will somehow get to walk again. Even if she'll never truly be the same.
あのお方を説得せねばならん。
I have to persuade him. Just as the familiar thought crosses my mind, I hear an angry shout from the main room. That must be the thunder, and the softer voice answering must belong to my mother. There'll be another of other important townspeople with them, but if they're talking, it's in voices too low to hear. Although I'm too far away to make out the details of the heated exchange, I know my mother is taking the brunt of it. It must be by her design. I have no reason to worry. While I was distracted, Hikaru's condition has worsened slightly, although whether it's the fault of my carelessness or simply an aftershock, I can't say. I redevote my attention to my Yawara techniques, determined to continue until the convulsions end, however long it may take. It's 2 in the morning when Hikaru finally falls asleep. After finishing my morning Abulations, I say goodbye to my mother and look in on Hikaru, my usual routine before leaving for the office.
光る。
Hikaru, I whisper. Knowing that no answer will come, my voice can no more reach her than it could during her attack. In the light of morning, her appearance is even more wretched. A year of battling this disease has whittled away at her, and she's little more than skin and bones. Her hair is faded and brittle like dry leaves, her mouth has far fewer teeth than before, and her glazed eyes stare into space, seeing nothing. If not for the wheezing sound of her breath, one might easily mistake her for a corpse.
たわけ。
Pooh. I rebuke myself for the evil thought. Hikaru's alive. She's alive. I have to believe. I have to trust in her will to
帰
survive.
りにあちらへ寄って、またお願いしよう。
After work, I'll go ask him again. Once that decided, I leave for the office. Like evening, morning sees the streets full of people, though with somewhat less variation. Most are students or working men like myself. So I wonder, is he going to see his father or his boss? Both of those seem like the likely answers, right? A group of schoolgirls race past. They must be running late. I see a few familiar faces among them, though I don't remember their names. I recall exchanging words on occasion. Let's see, I think it was... How many layers of...
ヒカル様、この手紙を受け取ってください。
How many layers of flashbacks are we going through? Are we like 3 layers deep right now? My lady, please read this letter.
タイが曲がっておるわ。
Your heart is as crooked as your tie.
今
Was that
の
just
は
it?
知らん。この光を冥府魔道に引き込もうと図る邪教の輩であろう。
Probably one of
あ
those
んな誘惑に
fiends.
は断じて屈さぬから安心するがいい、影明。
Probably one of those fiends who've been trying to lure me into their cult of depravity. But I won't give in to their temptations. You can rest easy.
うん。なぜ俺が安心するのかよ
Alright,
く
though
わ
I'm
からん
not
が。
sure what that has to do with me. Are they simping for... Are they simping for, Takeru?
ヒカル様と兄君だ。おはよ
Oh, Hikaru, sorry, that's her name. Well, if it isn't the gallant Prince Hikaru and her brother. Good morning.
おはようございます。
Good morning.
う。おはよう。さま言うな。
Good morning. Stop calling me that. I mean, if women are throwing themselves at your feet, must be doing something right. Right, Hikaru?
今の子、新顔だよね。これで何人目？あんたのせいで白い花の修羅道に落ちちゃったのは。
That girl was new, wasn't she? How many now have you driven onto the path of lilies and blood?
いちいち数えてるかそんなもの。あと俺が原因のような言い方をやめろ。
How the devil should I know? And don't say it like it's my fault.
原因がどっちかといえば、
It is your fault
そ
when you
れ
think
は
about
あん
it.
たの方だと思うけどな。納得がいかぬ。俺の何が悪いというのだ。
What have I done to warrant blame?
何がってその喋りが。いや、そんな端的な問題じゃないな。
It's just the way you talk, like some kind of samurai, but it's not really any one thing.
あんたの全存在が問題。
It's everything.
どうしようもないじゃないか。
So it's hopeless.
でも、そうだし。
Yeah, right?
はあ。
影明に同意を求めるな。
Don't drag Kageaki into
あ
this.
んたはフェロモンを発してんのよ。夢見がちな女の子を引きつけてしまうような。
You exude these pheromones that make impressionable young girls want to throw themselves at you. That's right, she's mega popular with the women. So popular that she just gets random women throwing themselves at her. Alright. Don't know what she did, but good on her.
私も時々感じるし。
I feel it too sometimes.
うん。
Just slowly stepping away.
距離を置かないように。大丈夫大丈夫。安心して。
Are you inching away like that? Don't worry, you're safe with me.
私はお兄さん狙いだから。
After your brother here. Glomp.
お兄さん、若い女の子は好きですか？
You like younger girls, don't you, dear brother? Hikaru disliked that.
なんの？ 正確な攻撃は来ると分かっていれば避けるのもたやすいかもしれない。
It's easy to dodge an attack you know is coming. At least I read that in a manga once.
勝ち誇るのは30秒後まで生き延びてからにしておけアフェンダー。影明を誘惑したその体、特に首の下腹部の上の忌々しい物体、究極許さねえ。
Let's see if you're still alive 30 seconds from now. I'll tear you to shreds for tempting Kageaki, starting with those foul devices between your neck and abdomen.
ここまでおいでってなもんだ。
Catch me if you
貴
can.
様は逃すか。影明、ではここで行
Get
って
back
きま
here,
す。
wretch. I'm off, Kageaki. Farewell.
行ってくるように。走るのは良いが、車には注意すること。
Have a good day at school. If you must run, at least watch for traffic.
了解。
Understood.
早掛けまで使わなくとも。相手は陸上部か。いい勝負だな。
Surely the Hayagake running technique is overkill. Is her friend on the track team? Well, not a bad matchup. They have a mystical running technique. Is she running like a ninja from Naruto? I watched them run off laughing down the street. They didn't seem to notice me. I don't blame them. They inhabit a different world now, from Hikaru and myself. Though I may gaze longingly across that divide, I can never bridge it. I tear my eyes from the distant joyful scene and head to the office. Damn, I swear silently as I look at my watch. I could have sworn I checked it only a moment ago, but now 20 minutes have passed since then. My lack of sleep is catching up to me. A brief lapse in concentration and my mind is out to sea like a boat loosed from its bollard. My boss and coworkers must have seen how dazed I was. Their decision not to rouse me could have only have been out of respect for my family's situation, of which they are well aware. I'm grateful for their support, but I mustn't take advantage of it. I have a responsibility to do the work they're paying me for. My family isn't the only one experiencing hardship in these dark times. Everyone has their own problems to deal with, and that goes for businesses as well as people. Only a shameless man forces others to bear his burden for him. Well, Kageaki, don't worry. In just a few short days, other people will be doing all the suffering for you.
申し訳ありません、部長。
My apologies, sir.
いやー、気にするな。疲れてるんだろ。
Don't worry about it. I know you're just tired.
業務に差し障りがあるほどではありません。今は気が緩んでいました。
Not so tired it should interfere with my work. I was careless today.
今後は気をつけます。
It won't happen again. Right. He nods, expression worried. I wish his concern was simply with the progress of my work. Few things are more painful, I've found, than to be the object of someone's charity. I realize I should simply be grateful for it.
先輩、お茶どうぞ。
Ooh, have some tea, senpai.
すまない。
Thanks.
そんなに気張らなくても大丈夫ですよ。今は忙しい時期でもないですし。
You have to be so hard on yourself. It's not like we're busy these days.
私なんて今日で3日連続遅刻です。記録更新なのですよ。
To tell the truth, I've been late 3 days in a row this week. It's a new record.
お前はもう少し気張れ。あと減給。
That reminds me, you're getting a pay cut.
そんな。
What?
今月は待ちに待った劇団長官戦の新作公演が。
Let's see what's favorite
Nani?
theater troupe this month. Naka stumbles and grips the windowsill to keep from falling over, and I chuckle at her theatrics. Maybe they're right. Maybe I do need to relax a little. I shake my head once to clear it of worry, and then turn my attention to the papers at my desk.
どうした田中、ぼーっとして。そのうち給料がゼロになるぞ、そんなことしてると。
Tanaka, the boss calls, not looking up from the files he's signing. You're gonna end up with a big fat zero on your paycheck if you don't get back to work
部
too.
長、
Boss.
あいつらです。
It's them. My boss's pen comes to an abrupt halt, and I quickly rise from my chair, moving to the window where my coworker is staring out at the street. A group of people is standing in front of the building entrance. If that were all, they might be mistaken for delivery men here to pick up goods for sale. That they are not delivery men is clear from their threatening glares, and by the objects even more threatening in their hands. Long tubes and metal sticks, commonly known as rifles and swords, respectively. A contingent of armed men has appeared outside our front door, and a few employees are standing nearby, but all seem unsure what to do. Not because they don't know who these men are. By now, everyone in the town knows it all too well. Bandits. Though no one knows for sure where they came from, it's a simple enough matter to guess. Bands of armed thieves are not rare in Yamato these days. In fact, you could say the country is overflowing with them. Rokuhara has fought hundreds of battles in its quest for supremacy against forces both within and without. In every battle that has a winner, there's also, of course, losers. Those stripped of rank and prestige and cast into the darkness of obscurity. In most cases, defeat also comes with a one-way ticket to the underworld. But this is not always so. Once in a while, the defeated will escape the victor's judgment, go into hiding and live to fight another day. While they doubtless have their own pride, their own justice to uphold, to us common folk they're little more than pests who should have died in battle somewhere far from here. After all, as long as the dream of regaining their power is the pretense that holds them together, they'll never be able to lay down their weapons. And as long as they wear armor and carry steel, they can't join peaceful communities and earn an honest wage. This leaves them only one way to survive, and that is to take what they need by force, and thus a gang of bandits is born. For that is ultimately what they are, no matter what they choose to call themselves. Bandits tend to set up near rural towns where Rokuhara has little presence, in other words, places like ours. We requested aid from the shogunate, of course, but to no avail, which is not to say that Rokuhara lets such outlaws go unchecked. Precisely the opposite, in fact, but the military's resources are limited and they must be deployed against targets in order of threat. Of highest priority are enemies with large contingents, charismatic leaders, or pipelines to foreign powers. The band occupying our town has none of these. In the scheme of things, they're a relatively inconsequential group, but it hardly requires a well-equipped army to keep a town like ours under control. If the country were more stable and the shogunate had more time, we might hope for a unit to be sent to our aid. Alas, that's not the case. Ashikaga Muramasa, governor of Horigoe, has joined with General Okabe Yoritsuna to raise an army against the shogun, at least that's what the rumors say. And with Muramasa doing nothing to dissuade them, the entire Kamakura region teeters on the brink of war. Okay. Sasagawa, Oyumi, Koga, and Kamakura are all on guard against an attack from Horigoe. Small wonder they don't have time to bother with a band of piddling outlaws. The bandits have, one might say, struck gold.
とまあこんなところだ。すぐに用意してもらおうか。
Here's a list of what we need. How soon can you get it ready?
いやー、そう言われましても、それだけの品を持っていかれてしまっては、我が社の経営が立ち行かなく。
If you take all this, we won't be able to do business?
そうか。ならどうする？
So what, you want to fight?
俺戦って今ここで会社潰す？
We can finish off your business right here if you want.
それは、そんな、しかし。
I don't envy my boss for having to deal with the bandits. That can hardly be called a fair negotiation, what with the men flashing their guns every time they get a chance. The only reason the conversations maintained some semblance of civility is because the bandits enjoy watching him squirm. If they cared about making an actual deal, well, they wouldn't be bandits. That said, I'm not really worried that my company will suffer catastrophic losses.
先輩、どうなっちゃうんでしょう。
どうにもならない。いや、相応の物資は供出せねばなるまいが。
Nothing. We're just gonna give them what they ask for.
でも、なんかとんでもない要求をされてるみたいですけど。ああ、このままだと給料どころか失職のピン
Sounds
チ
like
に。
they're making some crazy demands. At this rate, I might not even have a paycheck to cut soon.
従業員の一斉賃金カットは覚悟しておいた方が良さそうだが、その程度で収まるだろう。あれ
We'll
は
all
ヤクザ
likely
の
have
手
to
口
take
だ。
pay cuts, but no more, I think. This is just how gangsters conduct business.
彼らは町の経済に寄生している。経済が破壊されるほどの打撃を町に与えれば、彼ら自身の身体が極まる理屈だ。
These bandits are parasites. They depend on this town for food and supplies. They know better than to damage our economy beyond recovery.
過大な要求をしているのは、この後で提示する本当の要求を無抵抗に受諾させるための布石に過ぎない。
They make
So-
outrageous
so-
demands to ensure the real demand goes through without resistance. They should yield soon.
そうでしょうか。
Are you sure?
過去の例から見てもほぼ間違いない。彼らは無軌道な暴力集団ではなく、
Judging
理
by
性
how
的
they
に統
organize
率された
themselves,
組織だ。
conduct themselves so far, they're an organization governed by reason, not a gang of purposeless thugs. Tanaka seems unconvinced, but now my attention is focused on something else. The motorbike idling next to the band's armored truck. I saw bikes like that in the jungles of Southeast Asia. It's an army type An Army issue Type 90 Dragoon, a tsurugi. Which means the woman riding it is a Musha and the leader of the pack. Like her men, she wears a smile of contempt, though with one noticeable difference. She doesn't seem drunk on her power. Her gaze is calm as she watches the negotiation, and when she decides the time is right, she revs her engine once more.
貧乏くせ連中だ。仕方ねえな。
You're fucking poor.
じゃあこれとこれだけ用意しろ。今日のところはそこまでに負けといてやるよ。感謝
Hand
して
over
くれよ
this,
な。
this, and this.
全然足りないんだぜ。こんなんじゃ。
It's not enough, but we'll let you off easy today. You better be grateful.
はい、ありがとうございます。すぐに用意しますので。
We'll get it ready right away. My boss bolts for the warehouse, terrified that the bandits will change their mind. They see him off with jeers and catcalls. They must think they played him well. In his defense, my boss is no fool. I'm sure that he'd have little trouble reaching the conclusion I presented to my coworker. Few men, however, can employ their full reason when threatened with violence. I don't think for 1 second I could have done any better than he. He certainly drew the short straw this time. He'll probably catch flack from the owner for his quick capitulation, just as soon as the owner comes out of hiding. If possible, I'd like to speak in his defense. I quickly tear my gaze away from the bandits. For a moment, my eyes met those of their leader, who was scanning the building at just that instant. My impression of her was, in that instant, negative, so I saw arrogance, malevolence, overconfidence, surprisingly attractive features, but mostly negative. Luckily, she doesn't seem to think much of me. A snort for my cowardly reaction, and her gaze moves elsewhere. I breathe a sigh of relief. For a moment there, I was afraid I'd be their next target. I've always preferred to avoid conflict, especially with people such as these. I'll gladly bask in their contempt if it will keep me beneath their notice. My boss and the men he gathered are already hard at work hauling out supplies. I head to the warehouse to see if I can help. It won't take long. Everyone's determined to finish as quickly as possible. After all, that's the surest way to bring this episode to a close. The Minato clan has ruled over these lands for over 500 years. Originally, it's a warrior clan, its head the feudal lord of the region. Even after it lost its warrior status around the time of the Tokugawa's unification, it maintained de facto control over affairs in these parts. The Minato family to which I belong is a branch of that clan, but where most branch families are formed in response to questions of succession, mine is possessed of an unusual origin. Its establishment dates back 5 centuries. In other words, contemporaneous with the founding of the Minato clan itself. To understand this anomaly, one must know that the Minato clan originally came to these lands under imperial edict with orders to take charge of something evil and keep it sealed for all eternity. To this end, the Minato clan decided to form a branch family which would live separately and conduct the rituals necessary to keep the evil locked away, while the clan's main family would stand above it as a guardian and supervisor, and thus my family came into being. Historically, families charged with the duty of ritual are wont to keep the bloodline pure. Often this can even mean marriages between close relatives. It's not the case with the Minato family, as it's due entirely to the fear with which the evil in its custody is regarded. The head of the family has always been female and has always taken a husband from outside the clan to father the next generation. By thus keeping the bloodline diluted, the Minato family is made a wholly separate entity, isolated from the rest of the clan along with the catastrophe against which it protects. This is also the reason our manor is located so high up in the mountains. Though it enjoys status and respect, the Minato family is never truly allowed to mingle with the people it serves. Or at least that's the idea. In reality, these customs are a thing of the past. While the clan, exhibiting their stubborn traditionalism characteristic of ancient warrior houses, still goes to great lengths to maintain the trappings of the branch family's aloof majesty, our image among the townspeople is a far cry from what it was. Now, most of them see us simply as a family of eccentric shrine keepers. Otherwise, those opposed to the clan leader's call to war would not have chosen my mother to represent them. True, that makes sense. If you used to be a warrior clan, yeah. And now those opposed to war are following your mother. Yeah. Of course, I imagine her own affability and leadership qualities play a part as well. Either way, it's nothing for the clan leader, the old master as he is known, to be happy about. Which is why whenever I call upon him, I must always be prepared for a lecture.
It
is this asshole.
奴らは正規兵崩れではあろうが、数は100にも届かぬ。町の男どもが集い不意を襲えば、勝てぬ道理などあろうかよ。
Think about it. They may be soldiers, but there's less than 100 of them. If we round up all the men in town and take them by surprise, there's no way we can fail.
それをスバルめは人死にが出るの割に合わないのと言いよって。まさしく女の源氏よな。一命をとしてでも守るべき誇りがあることを知ろうともせぬ。
And yet that Subaru keeps challenging me, saying, "Oh, it's not worth it. People will die." How like a woman? She doesn't even try to understand that there are some things in this world worth dying for.
影焼貴様もそうは思わんか。
Kageaki, you understand, don't you?
あ、自分ごときには何とも。
I'm afraid it's not my place to say, sir. However much I prepare myself, it's always harder than I expect. Sighing inwardly, I sneak a glance at my watch. An hour has passed since my arrival and nothing to show for it. Conversation didn't even draw close to my topic. It would have been rude to broach it immediately after arriving, so I chose to open with news of the morning's raid, a subject I knew was unavoidable either way. I'm beginning to regret that choice.
わからぬはずはなかろう。貴様はお国のために戦地へ赴いた身ではないか。武功を挙げられなかったのは残念だが、金で兵役を逃れた酒屋のクソガキなどとは違う。
Of course you understand. You fought for your country in the war. It's too bad you couldn't bring home any medals, but at least you're nothing like the parasites who brought their way out of the draft.
知っておるぞ。スバルは兵役免除の手続きをしようとしたが、貴様が拒んだのであろう。その一件を聞いて以来、わしは貴様のことを見込んでいるのだ。
Subaru tried to get you an exemption, but you turned it down. Ever since then, I've had high hopes for you, boy.
恐縮です。
Thank you, sir. I simply couldn't let her go to such lengths for me. A misunderstanding on the old master's part, but if that is what earned me a reputation, or reception, grudging though it may be, of all the times I've come calling since Ikaru's collapse, then however much the deception pains me, I can't afford to correct it. Yeah.
貴様を養子に取った秋高にも、見る目くらいはあったのだろうな。聞けば、貴様の実の親は義勇兵として大陸へ赴き、壮烈な戦死を遂げたとか。
Akitaka made a good choice when he took you in. I suppose that's the one thing the bastard managed to do, right? From what I heard, your birth parents went to the continent as volunteers and died a glorious death.
そのように聞いております。
So I've been told.
南蛮の血筋とはいえ、お国より受けし恩を忘れず、一命を捧げたはあっぱれである。貴様の体にもその父母と同じ血が流れているのだ。
They may have been barbarians, but they knew how to offer their lives to the country that gave their kind sanctuary. That's worthy of respect. Don't forget you share their blood. I respond with a bow, not sure what to say. What can I say when I know, from what others have told me, that it was this very man who most vehemently opposed my adoption? At least he isn't rewriting my parents' history in order to support his argument. From what I've been told, they did indeed die exactly as he says. My parents were born in Narutaki, Nagasaki, also known as New Holland. In other words, they were not Yamatoan in the strictest sense of the word. The relevant background begins with the Napoleonic Wars that ravaged Europe in the early 19th century. During this conflict, Holland was obliterated by British invasion and thereafter vanished from the face of the earth. Look at that. We're getting more exposition about their alternate history. R.I.P. in peace, the Netherlands, obliterated by the Brits. The plight of the Dutch people who no longer had a homeland quickly came to the attention of the Tokugawa shogunate, which decided that to ignore it would betray a friendship of trade and trust that stretched back 200 years. Well, there you go. Instead of the Dutch being the only people who had trading relations, they now have their only city in Nagasaki. Huh. Alright. Relationship of trade and trust that stretches back 200 years. RIP. The shogunate therefore offered the port of Nagasaki to the Dutch, who were already familiar with it as the primary avenue of trade with Yamato. The Dutch had many trading posts and embassies throughout Asia, and now those merchants and diplomats flocked to their new home. The city was christened New Holland and recognized as an autonomous state, though only by the Tokugawa shogunate and countries hostile to Britain. A century passed, and what had originally been an asylum for Dutch in exile gradually became a haven for all seeking to escape British rule. My ancestors were one example, having escaped New Britain. I was told in the time of my... So this guy's American? I was told in the time of my grandfather. So Kageaki... It's not clear. Kageaki's parents are from New Holland, but they escaped from New Britain, which is probably North America, so he's American? Most likely they were remnants of the New British, or Americans as they call themselves, who fled the New World after losing their second war for independence. As I said, they're American. Kageaki is American, I see. Sometimes I wonder if my grandfather ever spoke passionately of freeing America from the Queen's yoke, as many Americans still whisper in secret. Ultimately, I know little of my biological relatives. The name I was born with, Arata Jiro, Arata being my Yamatoan version of my family's original English name, was mine only for the first few years of my life. Some 20 years ago, my parents, both of mixed heritage, left their young son and went to war where they would die. They shared this experience with many other New Hollanders, men and women who wanted to repay the country that took them in. I'm sure they also hoped for revenge against Britain, which was reaching out to engulf Asia as it had Europe. Most joined the Yamatoan military, though there were also the Knights of New Holland, a corps of brave warriors who went to the front lines in Kyushu, where they fought bravely and died to a man. My parents were in the former group. Somewhere in the continent, they met and befriended the man who became my father, and after they died, he adopted me. And thus I became Minato Kageaki. And so I've lived to this day. There we go. Kageaki's personal history. Currently, New Holland has no official status. The League of Nations doesn't recognize it as a state, and the Allied Expeditionary Force keeps it under close watch. I haven't heard of any overt oppression against the people there, but I doubt the conditions are comfortable. When I think of how it would have been to grow up as an orphan in that environment, I'm infinitely grateful to my father for having the kindness to take me in, and to the Minato family for accepting me. I owe them everything.
Subaru.
Subaru?
Hmm? どうしたのその子
What's with this kid?
いや、なんというかだな。突然ですまないんだが。
I know it's awfully sudden.
この子をうちの養子にしようと思う。
I was thinking we could adopt him.
あ、
Oh.
そうじゃあ昼飯3人分作らないとな。
Guess I'll be cooking for 3 then. Well, she's so gracious about that. She's just like, yeah, sure, whatever, it's all good.
だからだ、影明。貴様も誇りのために戦う道を知っていよ。
And that, Kageaki, is why I know you understand what it means to have pride.
Huh.
Sir? The sound of my name pulls me back from the labyrinth of memory. Fortunately, or perhaps not, the old master is still on the same topic.
尊厳を捨てて生きるより、誇りと共に死ぬのが大和人というものだ。それをあのスバルめは。
A true Yamatoan would rather die with honor than live without dignity, and yet Subaru insists. As I keep my head bowed to avoid making a reply, I consider the old man's words. His argument is not without merit. At the same time, however, it serves to deepen my understanding of Mother's viewpoint. Yes, pride is important. However, one should only risk his life for pride if he reached the decision of his own accord, and not that it was forced on him by another. I believe that's more or less what my mother would say if she could. I sympathize with her, placed in the unenviable position of having to express herself as tactfully as possible. Were she to speak her mind outright, the old master might fly into a rage, and that could lead to disaster. I must also hold my tongue. I can't risk supporting my mother to his face. Don't want to risk that, would we? Nor can I go along with his criticisms of her. It leaves me with no choice but silence. His tirade continues for some time.
そうな。あの時もスバルはそんなことを言うておった。バカ者めが。
Can you believe that's what she said?
貴様も養い親に感謝するのは良いが、 あまり毒されるでないぞ。
Now, I know you're grateful to her for raising you, but make sure she doesn't get inside your head.
キャツの娘ヒカルは見どころがあったがな。あんなことになったのがつくづく惜しい。
Her daughter, Hikaru. Now there's a girl who might have understood. It's truly regrettable what happened to her. I look up, my chance has finally
万
come.
事が滞りなく運んでおれば、今頃はヒカルが港家の長となっておったに。
If everything had gone as
全
it
く
should,
何たることか。
Hikaru would be head of the family now. It's a damn shame things turned out these ways.
はい。
What?
本来なら今年1月に神上げの儀が執り行われ、光は港家43代の座を襲っておりました。
Yes, sir. Hikaru was to undergo her coming of age in the first month of this year, after which she became the 43rd head of the family. I speak of plans that never came to pass.
ご本家の苦衷、
I can imagine your
お察しいたします。
frustration.
おお、神上げの儀と港の相続さえ済めば、わしの片付けねばならぬ大事は、あと光の婚礼が残るのみであった
Like,
わ。
after the succession, the only task left to me would have been to find her a husband.
貴様も口をしかろう。もしこのまま光が二度と立たぬようなことがあれば、貴様の立場も宙に浮くからの。
What will happen to your position in the family if she doesn't recover?
は、
Sir. My position to support and protect Hikaru for as long as she lives. The old master assigned me that duty himself. It's my sole purpose within the Minato family. And if Hikaru dies, that purpose is lost.
しかし全てはこの身の深くから自分が注意を怠ったばかりにこのような始末に至りました。
If I'd been more watchful, it could have been prevented.
詫びて済む話ではございませんが、返す返すも
I know I
面
can't
目次第
undo my
なき限り
mistakes. I can only express my everlasting shame.
貴様が謝るには及ばん。病は天命。人を責めても始まらぬ。
You have no need to apologize. Of course, illness is the province of the gods. No man's to blame. I'm not surprised he would evade the truth so. It was he who approved the smelting plant's construction despite numerous objections from the town. No doubt that's why his tone is so bitter. Perhaps he took my words as a roundabout attack on his role in all this. If so, it's not my intent. I'm Hikaru's guardian, and therefore I bear the greatest share of responsibility. Best to move the conversation along before he withdraws into his shell of ill temper.
昨晩にも発作がありました。幸い大事には至らず済みましたが、
She had another attack last night. Luckily, there were no serious complications.
体調はどうだ？少しは回復しておらんか？
I see. Has her condition improved at all?
残念ながら
I'm afraid not.
神上げの儀は年内に済ませねばならぬ。さもなくば家宝に背く。港のカンナギの継承を規定の年齢において行わざるは、
The ceremony
古
must
来
be
より
performed
現
within the
に
year.
戒められるところだ。
The laws are explicit. For 500 years, the new priestess has always been invested at the appointed age.
これに違えば、お家の命運に陰りがさそう。
If we break this tradition now, it'll bring doom to the entire clan. Well?
は、
Sir, whoever she's
し
in
かし今は
no condition.
とてものことに。
起き上がれずともよい。半日の儀式の間静かにしておれるなら、あとはどうにか。
She doesn't need to do anything. If she can just stay quiet throughout the ceremony, say half a day, then the rest will take care of itself.
それが叶う状態ではないのです、ご本家。
It's impossible, sir.
い
There's
つ
no way
何
of
時
knowing when her attack
おっ
will
さんに
occur.
見舞われるとも知れず。
The old master tugs at his beard. Tradition is everything to this man, and the succession is by far the clan's most important tradition. He doesn't want to go down in history as the first clan leader to fail in his duty. This is my opening, my only hope.
さればこそ、ご本家。
I have a solution, I say, sliding my knees an inch closer.
欧州では鉱毒病の研究も進んでおり、中でもベルリンのメンゲレ博士は第一人者と聞き及びます。
I'm told the foremost
いかがで
expert
しょう。
on heavy metal poisoning is a Dr. Mengele in Berlin. Please, sir.
ご本家のお力で、博士をお招きいただくわけには参りませんか。
Will you not consider using your influence to call the doctor here?
またその話か。
This again? He frowns deeply.
港の祭儀を司るカンナギの身柄を他国者の医師などに預けるわけにはいかぬ。何度もそう言うておろうが。
The Minato priestess must not be defiled by the hands of a foreign doctor.
承っております。
I understand, however, there's no other...
もはや、
医師ならば手配する。先日のものは役に立たなんだようだが、 次は熊本の大学の。
If you need doctors, you can have them. The last one was useless, but this time, I'll summon that fellow from Kumamoto University, Dr.
赤池教授ならば先日書簡をいただきました。
If you
自
mean
分の手
Dr.
には負えぬと。
You mean Dr. Akaike, we received a letter from him just this week, which he expressly stated it was beyond his abilities.
メンゲレ博士をご紹介くださったのは
It was he
か
who
の教授です。
recommended Dr. Mengele. The old master grows deathly quiet, his face a terrible mask of displeasure. It's a warning sign. Anyone who's spent much time around this man knows to stage a tactical retreat at this point or risk the full force of his rage. At times, this has resulted in livelihoods quite literally coming to an end, and more than a few people have lost their jobs and been thrown out of their homes for angering the Minato patriarch. I, however, cannot retreat. Hikaru is out of time. The next attack might claim her life, or the one after that. There's no way to know. The only thing that is certain is that her luck will not hold forever. I throw myself to the floor at the old man's knees.
お願い申し上げます。ご本家。
I beg of you, master.
何卒光のため、港家のため、
Please,
お
for
許しを
Hikaru's
いただ
sake,
きたい。
for the clan's sake, grant me this one request.
何卒
Please. I press my forehead into the mat. It's nearly hard enough to draw blood. Normally, this is where he would shout me out of his home. Today, however, the silence lasts longer than expected. So he does this on a regular basis. How many times do you have to do it before it succeeds? Mind you, heavy metal poisoning can be degenerative for a long period of time. Does it get worse? Does it cause permanent damage? I don't actually know that one. We also don't know what kind of metal poisoning it is. Oh well, Google can solve that problem. Even if he doesn't care for her as family, he's no less desperate to cure Hikaru than my mother or myself. I have no choice but to believe that. And so, I wait.
よかろ
Very well, the old man croaks at last, his voice as raspy as a wounded
う。
bull's.
ヤマトに人なしとあっては致し方ない。ベルリンの医者とやらを呼んでくれよ。
If there's truly no one of use in Yamato, so be it. I will summon this doctor from
ご
Berlin.
本家。
Master.
だがな、影明。
However, a rush of joy lifts my head, but the old master's stare pins me to the floor.
それも貴様の進言が信ずるに値するものであればの
First, he
話
continues,
だ。
his voice hard as flint. I must be certain your recommendation is worth considering.
Oh.
Sir?
わかるか？わしは愚にもつかぬ輩の妄言に乗って港の社の正常を汚させたりなどせぬ。
You understand, don't you? I can't risk the sanctity of the Minato Shrine on the word of some fool.
だが貴様が信ずるに足る男であるならば意見を聞き他国の医師に港の敷居をまたがせてもくれよ。
If you
わし
prove
は
to
そう
me
言うておるのだ。
that you're a man I can trust, then I'll accept your recommendation and allow this barbarian doctor entrance to our most hallowed precincts. So what's the plan? Does he have to convince his mother to change sides, or does he have to kill someone?
は
Understood.
して、
How shall I
そ
earn
の
your
証は
confidence,
いかにして立て
sir?
ればよろしいのでしょうか。
So it means to test me. The old master is wavering, uncertain whether to prioritize ancient tradition or Hikaru's life. But it seems he sees an opportunity. I'm asking him to choose the latter, but first he must know how much weight my words carry. So be it. I ready my heart and mind for whatever challenge he names.
山賊どもを片付けよ。
What a coincidence. Deal with the bandits. Almost like the bandits were introduced to the story in the preceding scene exactly for this purpose. Sir?
あやつらを始末するのだ。
Get rid of them.
どのような手段を用いても構わぬ。町の男を借り出してもよい。影明、貴様の手腕で、あの飢えた野犬どもをわしの膝元から駆逐してみせよ。
I don't care how you do it. Use the townsmen if you'd like, but you, Kageaki, will drive those jackals from my doorstep.
成し遂げた暁には、貴様を認めてやろうぞ。
If you complete this task, you'll have earned my respect. A bit of a tall order. The Yoshino Onryu Kasen Reiho is a martial art from Musha. Back when Minato was still a warrior clan, it was passed down with the tsurugi to each clan leader. The main family ended this practice when Minato lost its warrior status. Since then, it's been tradition for men of the Minato branch family husbands or male children of priestesses to inherit the school instead. It's an art intended for Musha. Its true worth is in airborne tsurugi combat, however, that's not its sole application. As an initiate in the Yoshino Onryu first studies swimming, hand-to-hand combat, and swordsmanship, and only after mastering the basics is he permitted to don a tsurugi and begin the final phase of his training. On the whole, far less time is spent on tsurugi practice than on anything else. While this may seem strange to an outsider, it is in fact a common thread in schools of Musha combat. The Yoshino Onryu may not be famous, but it's as orthodox as they come. The lack of emphasis on airborne training is due entirely to the difficulty involved. While group drills have become the rule since the advent of mass-produced kazuuchi, for the most part of history it was exceedingly rare for a warrior house to own more than one tsurugi. This made it impossible for masters to train young Musha in aerial combat directly as would have been ideal. In any other field, this would have been an insurmountable obstacle. How long would it take to teach a man to sail if you had one boat between the two of you and that boat was only large enough for one? But if you look through the historical record, you find it's not a significant problem for Musha schools. There were failures, of course. I've heard of trainees who mastered the basics, but when it came time to don a tsurugi, were unable to function in the sky. But such cases are rare. 9 times out of 10, a warrior who's completed basic training regiments are able to grasp the fundamentals of aerial combat without any direct instruction from his master. Through hand-to-hand combat, you learn to control your body. Through swimming, you learn to think and move in 3 dimensions. And through armored swordsmanship, you learn how to fight when outfitted with the tsurugi. The final comprehensive test is an underwater mock battle in full armor dress. Someone who's passed the test will not find themselves disoriented when they take to the air. There's a world of difference in speed, of course, but the feeling is much the same. At least that's the commonly accepted theory. As I myself have never equipped a tsurugi, I'm in no position to speak to its veracity, and a fact that is unlikely to ever change. The Minato family no longer has warrior status and therefore cannot legally own a tsurugi. I have little hope of ever acquiring piloting experience. These days, after basic training is completed, the secret techniques of tsurugi combat are taught merely as a formality. The apprentice is often said to have mastered the Yoshino Onryu. Perhaps it's irreverent to keep calling ourselves a Musha school under these circumstances, but then I'm a little concerned with how the world views us. The Yoshino Onryu teaches unarmored martial arts as part of its curriculum, and that's what I need now. I swing my 10-kilogram wooden sword in a single smooth arc from upper right to lower left. I do not perform a step-in. My position remains unchanged throughout the motion. 10 kilograms for a wooden sword? That's insanely heavy. How much does a wooden sword normally weigh? I don't even know if a wooden sword weighs 1 kilogram. Actually, I actually have one. They don't weigh 10. They don't weigh 5 kilograms. They weigh like 1 at best. Like a couple pounds. They barely weigh anything. Depends on the kind of wood. I still don't know what kind of wood weighs 10 kilograms when it's sword-sized. I mean, it'd have to be a giant, like maybe if you made, like, Cloud's Buster sword out of wood, maybe you'd get to, like, the point where it weighed, like, 10 kilos. But, yeah, a regular wooden katana, 10 kilos is insanely heavy for that. It's gotta have, like, an iron core or something. It has to be really big and have an iron core or something. Like, it has to be more dense than that. I reseat my blade above my right shoulder, then repeat the diagonal strike. This is the most basic exercise in the Yoshino Onryu, the falling slash from the right Jodan being the standard form of Musha combat. In schools of unarmored swordsmanship, Jodan refers to an overhead hold. In Musha schools, however, the sword-to-shoulder position is considered Jodan. The reason for this is simple. In tsurugi, the helmet obstructs the overhead hold. If you have to worry about catching your arms on the sides of your helmet, you won't be able to generate enough force to cut through enemy armor. Really? In a tsurugi, your helmet will almost always obstruct your overhead hold of a sword? Interesting. Probably because they have too many goddamn horns. The lack of a step-in, too, reflects the peculiarities of Musha combat. There's no question that the weight shift provided by a step-in greatly increases the force of your strike. But of course, it's only relevant on the ground. In the air, force is generated by flight speed, a function of engine output, wing control, and altitude. Legwork plays no role. A Musha's ground-bound training must cultivate those qualities that will also be of use in the sky, those being strength and speed in the upper body, hence the exercise I'm performing now. My swing is aided primarily by the breathing cycle. As I raise my sword, I inhale deeply, letting the air fill my lungs and expand my chest. I then strike with a single explosive exhalation, my chest collapsing against my spine. This exercise is designed with aerial combat in mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has no worth on the ground. Practitioners of unarmored swordsmanship often look down on the strength-focused Musha style, claiming that the sword should be swung with the weight of the body, not the muscles of the arms and torso. And it's true that Musha techniques lack the finesse of schools that specialize in unarmored combat. A famous story tells of a Musha who undefeated in the air who challenged an elderly master of the sword to an unarmored duel and was promptly beaten senseless by the old man's walking stick. There's many stories like this, but one must always remember they speak of masters, and that true masters are few and far between. This time I step into my swing, adding the weight of my body to the strength of my arms, chest, and back. My sword cleaves the air like a guillotine blade. The sharp tug of my wrist stops it scant millimeters above the floor. I analyze the sensation lingering in my arms and fingers. Good. Against an enemy with a weapon of equivalent mass, I'm confident the force of this strike could overpower any defense. I see no reason to fear that its raw power might be neutralized or countered by some deft stroke. The feat is much more difficult than the stories make it seem. Only a fool or a master would attempt it, and I don't expect I should have to face either here. A Musha's strike may be inelegant and exercise of brute force, but force is the simplest kind of power, the kind that anyone can come to understand and wield. Force, that makes sense. The technique pursued by unarmored schools is complex. Mastering it may make you invincible, but it requires decades of study and absolute dedication to the art. It also requires you to carry a sword everywhere, if they didn't mention that one. If you think of force and technique as tools, it's also useless against actual soldiers who are wearing tsurugi and can't actually be hurt by it. So if you think of force and technique as tools, the question becomes which is better suited to your purposes. One is not necessarily superior to the other, and besides, while they may not be as subtle or profound as those practiced by unarmored schools, Musha schools have their own techniques, and many of these can be applied on the ground as well as in the sky. Without his wings, the dragon is but a snake. This saying is a favorite of those who disparage Musha schools, but I don't believe it to be true. It may just be bias on my part, I suppose. Honestly, there's little reason for a man who will never be a Musha to study Musha swordsmanship. It would have made more sense for me to enter an unarmored combat school. But who wants to admit that their 20 years of training were for nothing? So he's in his 20s. He did 20 years of training after being adopted. This kid's like 26 here. He was old enough to stand on his own and have memories. 26, bare minimum. Good to know. Thanks, game, for telling me that he was training with his family for at least 20 years. It's not as if I can turn back the clock, and even if I could, it was always my duty to inherit the arts of the Minato family. I never had a choice to begin with. If the Yoshino Onryu is the only school available to me, then I must find some meaning in it, for the sake of my mental stability, if nothing else. Of course, if I need more confidence than wishful thinking can provide, I know where to find it. Brute force, the great masters may regard it with contempt, but I know what can happen when it's taken too far. I wipe the sweat from my eyes and turn to the far corner of the dojo. There, atop a small cushion, sits a heavy metal helmet. The helmet is split nearly down the middle, sliced in half by a single stroke. It's been like that for a year now. There's been time to take it to a blacksmith for repair. 1 year. Yes, 1 year since that day. Damn, she cut that steel helmet in half in one swing. Even from behind, the sight of her was beautiful. Her posture was strong yet supple. Her aura fierce yet serene. Every quality that defines a swordsman was present in her at that moment, each in its ideal proportion, lacking absolutely nothing.
打ち込むのは無理だな。
No openings, I admitted silently with no small degree of awe. Were I to have struck from behind without warning, she would have swatted me aside without effort or thought. Only 2 years after I began Hikaru's training, and already her skill has grown to surpass mine. Or I suppose she was my superior from the start. The old master would not have allowed Hikaru to enter the Yoshino Onryu tradition, would have prevented it, if not for what happened after he denied her first request. Her interest uncowed, she sat in on my practice, observed my techniques, and then 3 days later defeated me in a duel. Even considering my merely average skill, the talent she showed in this was beyond measure. The old master had no choice but to grant her wish. Okay, so she sits down, watches you practice for 3 days, and beats you in a duel after you've been practicing for 20 years. Goddamn, dude. The moment her formal training began, Hikaru progressed through the curriculum with unbelievable speed, and now, only 2 years later, she stood at the brink of full mastery. In truth, I can hardly call myself her teacher. This is someone who was able to dissect and neutralize my hard-earned techniques after only 3 days of quiet observation. It's safe to say that for every one thing I taught her, she learned 10. It reminds me of the saying, even a kite can give birth to an eagle. Or in this case, it's more like the eagle simply took up residence in the kite's roost. In short, I played no role in the birth of the prodigy Minato Hikaru. The pride I felt that day and still feel now was that of a brother with a talented sister, not a master who raised a brilliant pupil. For her last lesson, however, I had to play the role of the master, it being not a matter of skill but of mind. Hikaru's form suddenly blurred, her strike faster than the eye could see, her weapon, a battle-ready sword of standard design, her target, a steel helmet. Kabuto Wari.
見事。
Magnificent. It was the least I could say. Her strike left nothing to be desired. And yet the dull clang ringing in my ears is exactly what I expected to hear. She had failed. The helmet was still whole. I moved to Hikaru's side and examined her weapon. The sword was badly damaged, a dent of several millimeters right in the center of the monouchi.
また折れ飛ぶだろうと思っていたが、
If she was a real sword saint, she would
お
have
め
just
えの
used a
割に
pistol.
名刀だ。実は名のある投稿の策なのかもしれん。
I was afraid this one would snap too. A surprisingly good sword we have here for one with no name. Perhaps it's actually the work of a famous smith.
そうだな。刀はいい。光の腕が足らぬ。
The blade was up to the task, yes. I was not. I could hear her teeth grinding as she sheathed her sword. The motion was as fluid as ever, an impressive display of self-control, but at the end, guard met sheath with a sharp clack, a tiny glimpse of the frustration boiling within her. Drops of sweat fell from her hair to the dojo's earthen floor. She'd clearly put everything she had into that strike. With time and effort, anyone can build enough stamina to swing a sword 1,000 times, but to pour the stamina of 1,000 strikes into a single mighty blow requires talent. Taking in her pale face and labored breathing, I found myself awed anew by the depth of my sister's skill.
それがあだか。
A double-edged sword, perhaps, I muttered, unthinkingly. Fortunately, Hikaru didn't seem to have heard. She was struggling with her own thoughts amidst exhaustion, her gaze focused entirely on the helmet, still in one damnable piece atop its pedestal. Not undamaged, of course, but the shallow cut in its crown was hardly enough to comfort her.
足りぬ。
Not enough.
力が足りぬ。
Still too weak.
最後の試しでこのように手間取り無様を晒すとは。
I
俺
think I
はこ
would
の
falter on my final test.
何を鍛えていたのか。
What have I been doing these past 2 years? What was all my training for? The shame in her voice was profound, and for a moment I feared she would slit her belly then and there.
どうも慢心していたようだ。すまない。
Give me Kageaki. It seems pride got the better of me.
謝る必要などない。俺もお前と同じように。いや、それ以上にこの最後の試しには手こずった。
You have nothing to be ashamed of. I had just as much trouble passing my test. More
あ
even.
の時ダメにしてしまった刀が総額でいくらになるのか。父に聞くのが怖いな。
When I think about how many swords I ruined, let's just say I'm glad Father was so understanding. No response, not even a smile. The poor quality of my attempt at levity wasn't entirely to blame. More than that, she lost her usual aplomb. Yeah, she realized she's not a real swordmaster. No beams. No blowing the entire building away. Gotta work on that. My heart ached to see her that way. I understood the reasons for what I had to do, but the fact still remains that I was deceiving my sister. The Kabuto Wari is the final test administered to those who seek accreditation with the Yoshino Onryu. The disciple is given a sword of hard-forged, razor-sharp steel and told to split a helmet in half with it. What she's not told, however, is that this is impossible. The helmet cannot be cloven in two. Throughout history, many famous swordsmen have attempted this extraordinary display of strength and precision. Some of them even succeeded. But success in the Kabuto Wari does not mean splitting the helmet in half. Even the great Sakakibara Inkichi, who performed the Kabuto Wari himself before the emperor, only managed to cut 9 centimeters into the helmet's crown. This is what most people mean when they speak of Kabuto Wari. A cut of that depth is more than enough to kill the man wearing the helmet, and no amount of strength or talent will allow you to accomplish more. It's been proven time and again that the perfect Kabuto Wari, the very act that was being demanded of Hikaru, is beyond human abilities. To make matters worse, where Sakakibara and his peers demonstrated their prowess on infantry helmets, the Yoshino Onryu requires its disciples to strike against the helmet of a dead tsurugi, a remnant of the armor once piloted by the leader of the Minato clan. You have to strike through a tsurugi helmet? With a regular sword. Damn, alright. How's it going, my dude? It may have lost its supernatural power, but its steel is still harder than most substances known to man. I doubt even a tank could crush it beneath its treads. How then can a mere human hope to cleave it in two? The task is impossible. Utterly impossible. I'd asked my sister to do something that couldn't be done. I looked away, unable to bear the sight of her in pain, and outside the window a swallowtail butterfly was flitting about on the branches of a cypress tree. I remember thinking it callous for being so carefree, but I suppose it was foolish to expect a butterfly to take an interest in human troubles. Kabuto Wari is impossible, yes, but then splitting the helmet is not actually necessary. The student passes the test by surrendering to it and admitting that some things in this world are simply beyond him or her. The Yoshino Onryu, for all its harsh training, does not seek to create superhuman warriors, but warriors who understand that no matter how great their skill or talent, even their power, they can never be more than human. This final lesson set down by the school's founder is meant to impose a simple admonition. Be not proud. I wholeheartedly agree with the founder's intent, but still.
Hikaru.
Alright. I can feel my tongue loosening in my mouth, but it's forbidden to speak of the truth behind the test. I've heard that more flexible-minded individuals are able to reach the answer in only a few days. For someone as earnest as Hikaru, however, it would not be so simple. The greater one's talent, the longer it takes, so my father told me. I thought Hikaru might find this task more difficult than any she's faced in her life, which, in a sense, made it perfect for her final test. Essential though it may be for a swordsman to rid himself of conceit. As the person responsible for administering the test, I couldn't help but feel that I was doing something unscrupulous, even cruel. Fortunately, the end is in sight. Hikaru had already admitted to hubris and was beginning to understand her limits. Her stubbornness may have taken a little more time to crack, but I knew it wouldn't be much longer before she found the humility the school's founder desired of its successors. I needed only to have faith in my sister's character, something that was not at all difficult to do.
あまり思い詰めるな。
Relax. I said with a hand on her shoulder, doing my best to affect a light tone.
物事に行き詰まった時は、一度力を抜いて視点を変えてみるのもいい。これはこうと思い込んでしまわぬことだ。
When you run into a problem that seems unsolvable, it often helps to step back and look at it from a different angle. You don't want to trick yourself into thinking there's only one way things can be. Right, she answered listlessly. My roundabout advice didn't seem to have gotten through. I wanted to help, but I couldn't be any more direct without violating the parameters of the test. Perhaps I was being tested too, in a sense.
父の言葉を借りて言えば、刀は硬いのみならずだ。
Who bore a
硬い
phrase
刃
from
の下
father.
に柔らかい芯を込めて、 初め
Hardness
て豪獣兼ね備え
is
た
not a
俺
sword's
が
only
刀が出
quality.
来上がる。
Beneath the rigid blade is a soft core, and that's what makes it bend instead of break.
この間出張のついでにあった俺に聞かされた言葉だが、思えばあれはお前への伝言だったのかもしれない。
That's what he told me the last time I saw him. Come to think of it, he might have meant those words for you.
父か。
ああ、ヒカルはまだ会ったことがなかったな。
Yeah, you haven't met him yet, have you? No. Hikaru's voice was strangely flat. I don't know whether it was because she didn't feel anything regarding her father, or she didn't know what to feel. Either way, it broke my heart. Hikaru's father, Subaru's husband and my adoptive father, was no longer part of the Minato family. He and the old master had been prone to disagreement, and he was forced to give up the Minato name shortly after Hikaru's birth. As far as the old master is concerned, Minato men are just breeding stock. I'm sure he was only too happy to get rid of father once his usefulness had ended. Oof. Now he lives in Kamakura under his old name, working as a public servant. This was true 1 year ago as well. And so Hikaru has never met her father. I believe he was allowed to see his daughter once after her birth, but she couldn't possibly remember that. And unlike me with my occasional work trips, Hikaru had never been afforded the opportunity to visit him in Kamakura. The old master would never permit the priestess to leave this sacred land for that. Nor had father ever tried to visit her here. His busy job was a factor, I'm sure. But I also think he knew what a fuss it would cause. However,
あの人は港家へ戻ってくることはもうあるまいが、吉野恩流宗師の立場を捨てておられない。会えば技の手直しをしてくださることもある。
but he's still Grand Master of the Yoshino Onryu, and he offers me refresher courses every now and then.
お前が奥インカまで達したなら、宗師を継がせるおつもりだ。先日そう伺った。その折には、手紙のやり取りで済ませるようなことではないからな。
Father's trying to get lucky with the priestess, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure he already has. That's why his kid is next in line. The last time he met, he told me he means for you to succeed him as Grandmaster once you've completed your training. Something that important, well, it's not as simple as mailing a certificate.
あの人はこの家へ来られるだろう。
He'll have to do it in person. This wasn't intended as encouragement. If I'd thought it would act as such, I wouldn't have said it. The last thing I wanted was to make Hikaru more desperate. It was just a hopeful comment born of my own desire to see Hikaru reunited with her father, if only for a short time. Either way, it didn't seem to have had an effect. She looked away, and her expression was unreadable.
Kageaki.
Kageaki.
光は父に会えるであろうか。
Will I ever meet my father?
ああ、
Yes. While giving a non-committal answer, I tried to work out the meaning of Hikaru's question. Her flat tone made it difficult to grasp her true intent. And then I realized perhaps she's wondering if she'll be able to complete the Kabuto Wari and earn her master's rank. In which case,
必ず会える
of
だろ
course
う。
you will.
そうか。
I see. With that blunt reply, Hikaru wiped the sweat from her brow, picked up a wooden practice sword, and launched into striking drills. The crisp sound of her blade cleaving the air beat a perfect rhythm against my eardrums. I smiled watching her. Now there's the Hikaru I knew. 1 year has passed since that day, and yet for some reason I remember it vividly. A mystery of the human mind, perhaps. By all means, Hikaru's next attempt at the Kabuto Wari should have left a far greater impression, but I find my memories of that day foggy and vague, a blur in comparison. On that day, Hikaru clove the helmet in two. And that night, the sickness took her. Well, rip. So, that day, she's just like, oh yeah? Boom. Right in half. With a regular katana. What allowed her to perform such an inhuman feat? Even now, I have no answer. Genius. Is that the only explanation? Perhaps so. Perhaps I should be satisfied with that. But still, it was supposed to be impossible. A mere human should never have been able to cleave through the Emishi forged steel. Yes, the armor was dead. Yes, it was split in half once before. But afterwards, it had been fully restored by a master blacksmith. There was no weakness that could have... Wait, split in half once before. That's right, I do know. I know what makes the impossible possible.
Kageaki?
Kageaki? The sound of my name snaps me out of my daze, and I turn to find my mother looking at me with concern. How long have I been standing here? Not more than a few seconds, surely. Was it minutes? Reality's sudden return has left me disoriented.
申し訳ありません。稽古をしていたのですが、少し考えることがあって。
Sorry, I was practicing, but my thoughts, they got away from me.
そうか。ま、ほどほどにしときなさい。
Ah, well, don't wear yourself out. Right.
ご心配をおかけしました。
I didn't mean to worry you. As I bow, a few strands of damp hair touch my forehead. The sweat's cold. I was out for a lot longer than I thought. I close my eyes and cover them with a hand. A meaningless gesture, but necessary to restore my mental balance.
しかし、本家も無茶なこと言ったもんだな。
Old man sure put you between a rock and a hard place. Well, I already told her what happened at the old master's. She didn't throw up her hands in
お
joy.
前の頼みを体よく蹴ったつもりか。私への当てつけか。単なるものの弾みか。何しろ、まともな考えじゃないな。一人で山賊をどうにかしろなんてさ。
Or if he's just trying to get back at me. Or if it's just some whim that popped into his head. Either way, it's insane sending you against those bandits by yourself.
ご本家からは、町の人々に協力を仰いでも良いと言われてはいます。
He did say I could request assistance from the
お
town.
前がそうしないことくらい向こうだって分かってるよ。付き合いは長いんだから。分かってて言ったんだ、あのジジイめ。
Right. He's known you long enough to know that's the last thing you'll do. That's why you said it, that old fox. He's right, of course. I have no intention of asking for aid. The bandits may be a threat to the entire town, but I made this deal for personal reasons without consulting the townsfolk. I can't drag them into it now.
しかし、ご本家は約束は守ります。それだけのプライドは持っておられる方です。
He'll keep his promise, though. He's far too proud to do otherwise.
そこは信じるけどね。
Are you really gonna do it?
影焼き、お前本気でやるつもりなの？
はい。
Yes. This is what I've been waiting for, a chance to save Hikaru.
出てってくださいってお願いして、はいそうですかで済む
Not gonna be
話
as
じゃな
simple
い
as
んだよ。
asking them to leave, and they have at least one tsurugi with them.
何にせよ、まずは話し合いから試みるつもりではいますが。はい。おそらくそれでは済まないでしょう。
I do intend to try that first, but yes. I know it's unlikely to work.
死ぬかも。
You could die.
可能性としては。
It's possible.
死ぬと痛いぞ。いや、試したことないからわからんけどさ。
Not that I've tried it or anything.
では、死なないように注意します。
Oh, I'll do my best to avoid it.
怖くないのか？
You're not
恐
scared.
ろしいです。
Yeah.
山賊団のただ中へ一人で乗り込む。
The thought of walking into their camp terrifies me.
考えただけで。
I hold out my
この
hand.
通り、
Look, I'm shaking.
指先が震えます。
だったらさ。
しかし、ヒカルを救うため。
If it's the only way to save Hikaru. The shaking stops, and I curl my fingers into a fist.
是非もありません。
Then I have no choice.
困った息子だ。
Catch you, a grown man still giving your mom trouble.
お許しを。
Forgive me.
もう少し横着な子に育てりゃよかった。
I knew I should have raised you to be less principled.
精一杯、スバル様を見習ったつもりでしたが。
Forgive me if I didn't follow the example you set.
可愛くない言い草だけは一人前だよ。たくも。
At least you've learned to be a proper smartass. Gee.
わかった。でも、私も一緒に行くからね。
Have it your way, but I'm going with you.
それはなりません。
You mustn't.
なりませんだってなるもん。息子をそんなとこへ一人で行かせられるか。
Mustn't my ass. I'm going. There's no way I'm sending my son out there alone.
昨今は母親の過保護が社会問題化しています。
Overprotective mothers are a growing problem in today's society.
息子を武装略奪集団の中へ一人で送り込む母親がいたら、そりゃ虐待っていう社会問題だと思います。
And so are mothers who send their kids to fight against 100 to 1 odds. We call it child abuse.
むしろ息子の非行ではないでしょうか。いえ、
Or perhaps the children are to
そう
blame
い
for
う
being
問題では
disobedient.
なく、
In any case,
ご本家からは自分の手腕で事を解決せよと命じられています。 スバル様のお力は借りられません。
The old master ordered me to solve the problem on my own, and I can't ask for your help.
でも町の人間を使っていいとも言ってたんだろ。
He said you could
私だ
help
って
in the
町の
town,
人
didn't
間
you?
だ。
I live here too. Oh no, she's putting out death flags. Stop it! Stop!
不器用な息子め。口で母に勝とうなど10年早い。
Nice try, boy, but you're 10 years too early to outsmart your.
ご本家は町の人間とは言っておりません。
He said I
町
could get
の
help from the
男と言っ
men,
ておりました。
not just anyone.
お諦めください。
I'm sorry.
10秒経ってね。つーか、じじいのアホ。そんなに私が嫌いか。
Didn't even take him 10 seconds. Ah, what the hell, Gramps? Do you really hate me that much?
それにスバル様、ヒカルを一人残してはいけません。
Moreover, we mustn't leave Hikaru alone.
自分の留守の間、ヒカルをお守りください。
Please protect her while I'm gone.
あ
I guess someone's gotta do it, right?
あ、もう
Damn it, damn it.
くそー、可愛くね。
My vision suddenly plunges into darkness, and it takes me a few seconds to realize she's wrapped her arms around my head.
ろくでもない息子だ。母親の言うことを聞きゃしない。
You're a bad boy for not listening to your mother.
申し訳ありません。
Well, I don't know what to
お
say.
前みたいな子供は大嫌いだ。
I should disown you for this.
愛しております、スバ
I'll
ル様。
always love you.
バカったれ。いいか、親不孝。一個だけ。
Alright,
私
but
の
if you're
言
gonna
う通り
go,
にしなさい。
there's one thing you have to promise.
はい。
無事に帰ってくること。
Okay. Come back safe.
は
I'll do my best.
空気読め。そんな言葉を聞きたがってると思うか？
Not the answer I was looking for, you stupid boy.
必ず帰ります、
I'll
スバ
come
ル様。
back safe. I promise.
よろし。
Good. My mother releases me from her strangely comfortable grip and then sighs, pauses as if to clear her mind, and then fixes me once more with her gaze.
いつ行く？
When are you going?
明日にでも
Tomorrow.
会社は？
What work?
すでに休暇を申請してあります。
I already put in for time off. Even if I went to work, there wouldn't be anything to do. The company has to replace what was stolen before any new orders can come in. In addition, solving the bandit problem will benefit the company as well, and after I explained the situation, my boss was only too willing to give me the time. He even put it down as paid leave. I mean, if you succeed, yeah. To be honest, I felt like less like a vote of confidence and more an advance for my funeral donation. A war between hope and resignation waged on his face throughout our conversation, but the latter clearly had the advantage.
策の一つくらいはあるんだろうね。
Got a plan at least, right?
別段。
Not as
ないのか息子よ。
nothing.
まずは会ってから考えます。
I'll come up with something after I've met their leader.
ああ、やっぱすっげえ不安。
Not making me feel better.
どうかご心配なく。
無茶言うなっつーの。
Like that's gonna happen.
じゃ
Okay.
あ、一つだけ助言
One
だ。
piece of advice.
こいつは母親じゃなくて部の道の先達としてなんて大行に構えて言うとむやみやたら恥ずかしいけど
I'll say this not as your mother, but as your elder disciple in the way of the warrior. Oh, that sounded cheesy, didn't it?
は受けたまわります。
I await your instructions. I straighten my posture. Whatever she's about to say deserves nothing less than my full attention. When the old master grudgingly allowed Hikaru to begin training, it wasn't only her genius that influenced his decision. There was precedent. Hikaru's mother, who had learned the Yoshino Onryu from her own father years ago. My mother's talent, too, is far from ordinary. She almost never displays the fruits of her training anymore, but I can tell from the subtle signs in the way she moves and holds her body that her skill may rival even her daughter's. The words of such an individual are not to be taken lightly. A pause as she waits for me to ready myself, and then,
殺しちゃいけないよ
you mustn't kill anyone.
誰も一人も殺しちゃダメだ
Not a single person, you hear? Not for any reason. But there's no greater shame, I know, than to take a life without need. Killing must always be the last resort. However, will I be able to drive off the bandits who far outstrip me in both number and ruthlessness without use of lethal force? It seems a slim hope indeed.
影焼敵を殺せば戦いは終わると思う
Kageaki, she continues, sensing my thoughts. Do you think killing your enemy will end the fight?
それは違うよ
It won't.
逆だ
He'll just do the opposite.
敵を殺したら戦いは終わらなくなる。
Kill your enemy and the fight goes on forever. I see. I think I understand what she's trying to
もし
say.
もお前が死んだら、私はお前を死なせた奴を全員殺す。一人も許さない。絶対に。
If you get killed out there, I'll murder every last person who had a hand in your death. I won't let a single one live. Count on it.
お前が誰かを殺したらさ、その人の身内が同じように誓うかもしれないんだよ。
If you kill someone, who's to say their friends or family won't make the same promise?
そうなったら、そいつも殺す？そうしたら今度は、そいつの兄弟かなんかが復讐に来るかもしれないね。
And if they come for revenge, will you kill them too? Then their loved ones might be next? Uh-huh.
終わらないだろ。
Your philosophy only functions if you have absolute power. Bad philosophy.
はい。
So, you see there's no end to it? Yeah, sure. Absolutely right. I wasn't considering anyone's circumstances but my own. Kill one man and you empower the worst kind of resentment, the kind that can never be truly satisfied. My actions could lead to war between the bandits and the town, with horrifying casualties on both sides. Lethal force won't solve the problem, it'll only trigger the very catastrophe we're trying to prevent.
だからいいね、影焼。どうするにしろ、
You understand?
誰も死なせないよう
Whatever
に。
you do, make sure no one dies.
お前自身も
That
含めて
includes
だよ。
you.
はい。
I
スバ
will.
ル様。
As I bow deeply, a cold breeze through the window signals the fall of night. And bringing us one step closer to our encounter with the bandits, who have an IFV of all things as well. The camp is located atop a hill at the foot of the mountains to the north. It used to be a favorite spot for children to play. Unfortunately for the children, the bandits also took a liking to it when they arrived. So we got an IFV, at least one tsurugi, and like, I don't know, a dozen bandits with guns and random bladed weapons. Alright. Good luck, my dude. I'm curious what he's got for us, but I think we're not going to find that one out today.